Okay, I got the red smoke.
Gun runs north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
How long were you gone? Like 6 weeks?
3. I'm sure for you it felt like 6 weeks because you missed me so much.
You know what it felt like for me? Not long enough.
First
day I felt like I missed him. And then by the end of the first day, I was like, God, life is better.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm letting my hair grow right now too, so I look like a bad car salesman at the moment.
What's the reasoning behind that?
Going bald, so I'm just kind of covering it up.
So, okay. Hold on. Your strategy is to grow the front longer so you can comb it over the back?
Well, I can kind of have like a Bradley Cooper thing going on.
No, I don't think that's what they call that.
Okay.
Why not just lean into it?
I hit my head on a lot of things. It looks pretty bad.
How old are you?
38.
It is a little bit old to be going bald. Do you have baldness in your family?
My dad is totally bald. He was by like 20.
Really?
Yeah, so I held on a lot longer.
I think, no, this is a hairstyle. I know you.
I had a high and tight for a long time, but like it started to look pretty bad.
That's also unacceptable. I know you're steeped in history, which we'll talk about a lot. I think you should go with the Friar Tuck.
Just the big round ring.
Yes. Do you get that reference at all, Michael?
Bring it back.
Wait, I know what that haircut is. I don't know who Friar Tuck is.
How could you know what the haircut is but not know?
You never saw the Disney movie when you were a kid?
Which one?
Just put in Friar Tuck.
That's what I just did.
Oh my God.
Oh,
My
the
kids
little-
love that movie.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's... Here's the thing, though. Everybody kind of knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
All right. So
Solid
are you going to
point.
go straight back once you have the hair?
Probably. When I was in my 20s, it used to be like a ponytail, but
Okay.
like haven't had long hair in a long time.
Yeah. I had a short period of time with long hair, and it was not as awesome as I thought it would be, especially in hot weather. It's a lot more maintenance. And then I had a buzzed hair for probably 8 years. That was amazing. 1 drop pea size of shampoo and just done in seconds. But you were saying before we got in here, you were into politics when you were younger.
Yeah.
How deep are we talking into politics?
Just always somebody that's been really interested in it. So a lot of my content was around that. In 2012, when I was in college, I was campaigning for Ron Paul. It was like grassroots campaigning.
How did you get so deep into it? Because it seems to, for me, I would be the other side of the spectrum when I was that age. It's not that I didn't care. It's just that I didn't pay attention, which I think is a politician's delight.
Yeah. Well, I guess here's that side. So I grew up in a household where my mom always had Rush Limbaugh playing in the house. So like it was a very, very like super ultra conservative house. And as I got older, I got a lot more into like libertarian philosophy and things like that. I don't know how to classify myself politically. I'm like homeless in some way, shape, or form. I'm not a big fan of the left. I like the right a little bit more, but
I struggle with this too.
Yeah.
I had a guest on who described himself, and I'll steal his words. It was Richard Ryan. He is a libertarian fringing on anarchy. And I'm kind of on board.
my friend Charlie Robinson says, I don't know if you know Charlie.
I don't. But I want government to exist in certain things, but I also want them almost completely out of my life. I'm not looking for anarchy. So I'm talking about like political beliefs, but I want government to be like that tiny that we're almost on the fringe of anarchy.
Well, because if you look at the purpose of government, it's to handle disputes between people. It's to make sure commerce runs. Well, it's not supposed to be for taxes, but handle commerce in between states and things like that. Government's gotten really, really big, especially since the progressive era. That was kind of the really big change on that. And 1913 is an extremely pivotal year because you get 3 things that year. You get your income taxes, the Federal Reserve Act, and then also the 17th Amendment passes. And that's where states can no longer, the state legislatures no longer vote for senators. And they were trying to solve a corruption problem, which I understand. You know, somebody's brother is the governor and they're trying to give him the job. But the problem is the House and the Senate now serve the same purpose. They're both popularly elected, whereas the Senate was supposed to basically show what the states wanted and the House was supposed to show what the people wanted.
Yeah.
And now we don't have that at all. So it's like if you look at our system since the progressive era, that's really where we've gotten the type of government we have now. And, you know, FDR builds everything up even more. But the big changes are really the turn of the century.
1913 is when income tax started?
Started in 1913. They did it over the Christmas holiday when nobody was there to really vote on it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. You know what's weak? Coffee made for people who hit snooze and complain about the weather. That is not Black Rifle Coffee. BRCC is veteran-founded and roasted in America and built for people who put in the work in the gym, on the range, or out in the mountains. If you are looking to stock up for winter or grab a solid gift, go with Waken the Neighbors for high caffeine, Beyond Black for something darker, or perhaps Atomic Llama. Their seasonal roast with cinnamon and brown sugar that just hits right. This year, BRCC backed organizations that actually make a difference. Folds of Honor, Hunter 7 Foundation, and more. And as we head into America's 250th birthday, they are doubling down on that mission. So whether you are running a cold morning workout, sitting in a deer blind, or just trying to survive family holiday chaos, BRCC has your back. You can find it at Walmart, your local grocery store, or blackriflecoffee.com. And also, just don't forget your local Black Rifle Coffee shop if you happen to have one. Black Rifle Coffee, veteran-founded, American roasted. This is America's coffee. So if I had a time machine, I always say I would just tell myself to buy Bitcoin when I was much younger.
I still think the CIA created it, but you know.
You think so? Oh, boy. I agree that conspiracies exist. I don't know if I'm a full-on conspiracy theorist.
Well, there's certain things I am and other things I'm more of a realist, but that's one that's a little weird to me.
Joe Rogan he talks about this really well.
Yeah.
The conspiracy theorist term was used super pejoratively, and I think intentionally to begin with. And the reality is that conspiracies 100% demonstrably have existed and still do exist.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that Bigfoot's real. You know?
I agree.
So you have to kind of balance those two things. Yeah, so now I would go back to 1913 and maybe talk with those assholes about this income tax policy that maybe got a little bit out of control.
Well, they tried it after the Civil War too, but it didn't last very long because there was huge debts after the Civil War. So they tried it was the first direct income tax they did. Mm-hmm. It lasted a few years. I think it was like 1887 or somewhere around there they tried to do it. And it didn't last very long. So then income tax was kind of their second chance at trying that.
I wonder at this point, you know, it's funny, we're talking about our government, the House and the Senate, neither of which currently doing their job.
They actually, just today, there was a bill that went up to vote on if, during the government shutdown, if Congress shouldn't be paid. And apparently that bill did not pass.
Oh, that is so wild. I wonder how a bill on term limits would do.
It's needed. It really is.
You think?
Because if you look at even what Washington wanted for the country, there was a couple things that Washington really wanted. Number one is he wanted congressional representation to be for smaller groups of people, so you'd have a lot more congressmen, which is good because they wouldn't agree on much. And the other thing that he wanted was basically to do a couple years of service, and then you go back to whatever your career was. But for a lot of these guys, it's what they do for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and the net worths associated with the salaries, which are publicly disclosed, the math gets a little bit askew on that as well. I think there needs to be some change. Again, I'm not an expert in government, but I think there needs to be some changes in our government. I mean, I was reading in the newspaper this morning. It's going to get really interesting, in my opinion. So the air traffic controllers just missed their first entire paycheck. I think it was trickling out until that point. The military, it's going to get close to that pretty soon too. And
wasn't there a private donor that was going to be paying for some military salaries?
So that was $130 million.
Okay.
The number I've seen is it costs per pay period for the military is $8 billion.
Oh my gosh.
Which I feel like that's a drop in the bucket if you look at the total, federal budget. And I'm sure that they could find it and allocate it somewhere. But most military, and this is from personal experience, when you're like an E4, E5, yeah. I spent a decade living paycheck to paycheck with kids.
Wow.
It's not fun. However, I also think people should experience that because you want to talk about a difference in appreciation and understanding and that feeling of, I remember, my kids will never know this, or they'll never experience this, but floating paper checks. I'm like, I'll go to the grocery store Friday because we get paid Monday. We'll float that sucker across, right? They're never going to have that experience because they've never written a check because everything for them is debit card or just tapping with the little chip. But when the money impacts the military and the everyday person, like travel, if ATC shuts down.
Well, you look at what happened last year, right? When the computers went down. I got stuck. I was at the RNC last year when that happened. And I was going to 3 different states after that to do podcasts. And I got stuck in, I think in Twin Cities or something like that on my connecting flight.
Yeah. And that extrapolate that over a week, 14 days. I don't know what that would look like, but I don't think people will stomach that.
Yeah.
Very much. So I think we're starting, because there's a lot of people out there posting, the government's been shut down for 20 plus days, hasn't impacted my life at all. And true, however, comma, it might pretty soon. And when it does that, I'll be really curious to see what type of pressure comes and what the resolution is going to be moving. They'll probably just kick it down the road for however many days. But
they'll do another one of those like omnibus bills or something to extend it a little bit further.
Yeah. And I think that every member of the House and Senate should immediately right now be uneligible for re-election.
Yeah.
I mean, how about that? How about it's your job? We get that there's two sides of the aisle, and sometimes you guys can agree on some things, and it's almost by doctrine not supposed to agree and not allow the other side to have any level of success. But you are our elected representatives to keep the government running. If I hired somebody to do a job, the coffee shop, if I hired you to throw coffee, I don't hire anybody to throw slide coffee, right? If you're slinging lattes all day and you refuse to do so, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to fire you.
Yeah.
Why are our elected officials treated differently?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that other than they seem to do a really good job of taking care of themselves.
Well, that's true. Just look at how net worths grow in their time in service, right? You look at Pelosi, or even there's been others recently that have been getting their bell rung about how their personal wealth has grown. It's a little crazy, honestly. It is. I
do like the autopilot app though, because of this.
I have not used it.
So first off, I'm not a sophisticated investor. This is not financial advice. I have nothing to do with this platform.
I just invest in gold, so I am not very sophisticated.
You're going to probably be okay. I was reading an article, and it's basically an app that mirrors politicians' portfolios.
Oh.
So there's a Pelosi tracker, there's a Crenshaw tracker, there's a variety of different things. And you can mirror the trades that they have, and they'll buy and sell. There's a little bit of a lag because they have a little bit of a time to declare, but they have a variety of different funds. And it not investment advice to anybody. I'm messing around with this with a very small amount of money, but it's like, maybe I want Pelosi to insider trade for my benefit. I want her to go to prison, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think it was it Tim Burchett that was on Tucker like 2 weeks ago, and he has a skateboard company apparently.
Okay.
And he was saying that it was really hard to get approved, like as a congressman, to be running a company that sells skateboards, but it's very easy to insider trade. So it's like apparently they're just not looking at the right things.
How could you not catch them insider trading? This is what I don't understand. It's my understanding that it is Pelosi's husband who does the vast majority of the trading. I'm not a detective, but I feel like if Ray Charles was a detective, he could follow the breadcrumbs.
Like Mr. Magoo.
He could follow the breadcrumbs on this one. So it's not like they're hiding it.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're doing anything about it. So why would they care?
Yeah.
It's if there's no consequence for horrible behavior that everybody thinks is illegal, that you would get absolutely crushed for if you weren't that person, what's to stop them?
Well, I guess the problem is, and the real problem with this is the body responsible for legislating Congress is Congress. So there's no third party that tells them they can't do that. If they want a pay raise, they're the one that votes on it. So that is a real problem. They would all have to basically sign a bill that they don't want to make more money.
Do you think it's solvable?
I don't know, honestly. I really don't know, because if you look at civilizations and how they fall, I think one of the biggest things is the economic side of things, right? If you look at Rome in the late 3rd century, in 284, they're at 15,000% inflation, right? And they didn't have computers like we do now. We can do it a lot faster. So I think the problem is we're not willing to cut the things that we need to cut. Argentina is a great example of that, of what Milei's done. 17,000% inflation when he took office, and he cut so many things, they actually had a surplus.
What did he start with? I mean,
well, did you see the video where he's got the chainsaw and he's cutting government departments?
Yeah, I mean, but I also saw Elon with the chainsaw too.
Yeah.
He wasn't cutting shit.
No, it's true. It's true. But he did actually cut government departments. He cut a lot of welfare departments. He cut a lot of government workers, because there's a lot of money going to things that don't actually produce anything. And, I've been running a business for a decade, and if I have somebody that's not producing something, I'm going to fire them. Right?
Yeah.
But in government, we don't do that.
Honestly, at the risk of sounding dumb, but I'm speaking for myself here, there are oftentimes terms thrown around that I don't have an immense handle on. And honestly, I don't think a lot of people understand what inflation is and how it grows to that level. So maybe, can you unpack that one? And I mean, again, I actually think people are afraid to say, they'll be like, inflation's so high. But if you were to ask them, well, what is inflation? They're like, I'll get back to you.
Well, it's the value of your dollar, right? It's the simple way to look at it. And if you look at, let's say you were buying gas, or let's do an easier one, car repairs, right? I had an Audi, and the hourly rate on that could be expensive to do, but the repair rates 10 years ago on that same car are more than double now. So when people look at costs, very oftentimes they'll say the cost of things are going up, when actually it's that every single day your dollar is worth less.
And what causes that generally?
A higher quantity of dollars, honestly. It's, we're paying for a lot of these programs when they don't actually have money. The Federal Reserve creates more money, and that's where the value that they're going to be using comes from. Have you ever heard the term quantitative easing before?
Yes, but that's going to be directly into a category of, I know how to say that word.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it means.
So they talked about it a lot during the 2008 financial crisis. They talked about it a lot in the last 5 years with COVID and everything. Quantitative easing is a really simple way for saying printing more money. It's a complicated way to say a simple thing.
Do they? I mean, so there's no accident in that term existing.
No,
because the normal person
they're easing the quantity of it.
Yeah, but but also normal people would ask a follow-on question if you just said we're printing more money.
Yeah.
If you say quantitative easing, what you do is you put up this little intellectual barrier.
Correct.
That most people aren't going to want to cross. To include myself, I'd be look at that and be like, I don't want to be a part of whatever conversation is happening because I need to go to the bathroom and Google what that term means.
Yeah. But I think that's often the things that politicians do is they try to use terms that other people don't understand. They probably don't understand themselves, frankly. Yeah. But they use them to get one over on you. And
how did Rome, in essence, in the modern era, when you say print more money, that's literally what we're doing is printing probably.
Well, we're not actually printing anything. We're just making more ones and zeros in a computer.
Yeah, okay.
Most of those dollars don't ever be printed.
How about Rome, though? I mean, because they were using a hard currency at that point, right? Like rare metals. Yeah. How did they just dilute it?
So what they did is they took their, and I guess to give you an idea of this, the silver coin in the time of Augustus, that's first century, is 95% pure.
Okay.
By the time you get to the time of Aurelian, which is 274 AD, so you're, 250 years down the road, it's 5% pure.
Oh, so they just diluted it and made more.
So what they would do is they would add other metals to coins. Adding copper was a good one. They would really raise like the bronze content of these coins. So what would happen is for them, the actual inflation was a very physical thing, right? Because they would have this coin that was worth one thing in one day and worth something else the next day. And it's driven by a lot of different things, but at the same time, they would clip off pieces of those coins to make new coins. And that is really the basis of it. And one of the biggest reasons for doing it is a lot of it actually has to do with the military, because the 3rd century changes Rome dramatically, because the emperors in the 3rd century no longer have these, I guess, great lineages of, tying themselves to somebody famously known. So the way they would do it is it would be military commanders declaring themselves emperor. And there were two different things they would do. The first is called what's called a donative. And dono comes from the Latin dono donare, which is to give. It's basically a gift they would give soldiers when they became emperor. And every emperor would make that donative bigger and bigger and bigger. So they gave a gift to the military. And then something they would do as well, there's an emperor in 193. His name's Septimius Severus. He's the first African to be emperor. And he doubles the pay of the legions. And every emperor after that is going to follow that same process of doubling and tripling the pay of the legions.
That math adds up real fast.
So you need coins to pay these people. So what are you going to do? You're going to dilute the coins because you only have so many coins. And the problem we have now in America is our money isn't backed by anything other than, the good faith and credit of the U.S. economy. And getting off the gold standard was a real problem because now they can inflate money super easily.
Is there any standard that we could attach our currency back to, or is it too far gone?
That's hard because I know Dr. Ron Paul has talked a lot about that. He said that he's a big for the gold standard, right? If we went back to that, which Nixon got us off, I think in 1970.
How would we even do that? What would the mechanism of that look like?
Well, I guess if you want an example of that, Constantine, who's emperor in 312 until 333, I think, or 334, what he does is he mints a few gold coins every single year until he dies. And then it ends up getting on a gold standard over time. So, and then that gold standard is going to go for 700 years in the Eastern Roman Empire without inflation. So they go for quite a while without inflation. So it's something that could be done, but the problem is, especially with an economy like our economy is now, we're so far over our skis, Andy, how would you handle that, right?
Oh, we're on the snowboard now. We're off the skis.
We're going down the hill, man, at a rapid pace.
How'd you get so into Roman history? I mean, I know it's deeply into your wheelhouse, and it is, what would be the way to say it? Not a common knowledge base.
It's nerdy, man. It's nerdy, but
I think it's fascinating. I'm not an incredible student of history. There's certain aspects that interest me more, but I know enough about it that I'm pretty sure human beings have not created anything unique in a real long time.
Well, I'm a big believer in saying that history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme, right? A lot of the same patterns will happen again. And we can choose to, like one of those choose your own adventure books, we can choose a different way to do it, but you have to recognize the patterns when you see them. So for me, I was super obsessed with Alexander the Great in undergrad. And
how'd you find that? There's plenty of people in history. What was it about him?
So believe it or not, I've had two really good teachers in my life. I had a really good U.S. history teacher in high school that I learned so much about government and civics and everything else. She passed a few years ago, but one of the best teachers I've ever had. I had this teacher in undergrad, Dr. Sean Lake, and he really got me to love history because he made it engaging. He made it fun. Like the guy would stand up in front of class and he would recite the Iliad from memory. Damn. And he'd make these one-liner jokes too. Like there's this story that Romulus founds Rome because he saw 6 vultures rotating over the 7 hills, and that's how he chose it. And the word for 6 in Latin is sex. And he goes, yeah, my band in high school was called Sex Vultures. So like it was like stuff like that there would always be these one-liners that you're like, this guy's hilarious. And he looked and sounded like Neil Patrick Harris. Really, really great guy. So I took every class I could take from this professor. And he taught a lot of Greek civ classes in undergrad. And I just found Alexander the Great to be a really, really interesting character. From the perspective of he's this philosopher king. He's this guy that, wants to, he's a student of Aristotle, so he's very well read. And he has this idea that he's going to unite the world under his rule. But when you look at that type of power, he's also on a razor's edge. And he has the ability to become this diabolical individual later in his career. So I think if you look at that dichotomy, it's extremely interesting. So I was just very riveted about the guy. Read every book I could read on Alexander the Great. And then I read this really weird article when I was in undergrad about this. It was after the Battle of Actium, which is when Augustus beats Mark Antony to basically become the first Roman emperor. He goes and prays in front of the sarcophagus of Alexander the Great. I'm like, that's really weird. Why did he do that? Because Alexander's been dead for about 300 years by this point. And I took a look at Augustus's career, and I realized that as a propagandist, he had looked at everything Alexander the Great did correct and then applied those same things to convince Romans they didn't have a king when they actually had one. So he was very brilliant in how he put things together. So for me, that's how I got into Rome, is I saw Augustus doing what he did, and I'm like, that's what Alexander the Great did, right? So he was trying to do these same things.
I mean, it's a fascinating period of time. Were you still, even in undergrad, were you still viewing, I don't want to say viewing the world through a political lens, but were you still deeply involved in politics?
I've always been really interested. I've always read a lot of political theory. I've always, I was reading Tom Clancy books at like 10 or 11. So I've always been very into that whole world. But in undergrad, I was a Catholic theology and Judaism double major. So
Jesus.
I've always been somebody that's been interested in like what makes people tick.
Okay. What have you found makes most people tick?
Well, I think most people are inherently good. And I think for that most percentage of people, it's actually making the lives of others around them better. But the problem is the type of people that want power are the ones that aren't always inherently good. And I think that's the thing that's pretty dangerous. It's not always the best of us that get into power.
Assume that thread.
It goes through history.
I was just going to say,
yeah.
It bounces his way through history for sure. God. And again, how do you stop that?
That's really hard. It's really hard because you would have to take government and make it more like jury duty, where you get that summons in the mail. You're like, oh God, I really don't want to do this.
Well, actually, I take that back. There are people out there who want to go to jury duty.
Did you see that show on Prime about jury duty?
No.
There is a show on Prime, and it's called Jury Duty. And basically, there's only one person on the jury that actually thinks he's on jury duty, and the whole show is playing a trick on him.
No way.
It is so good if you get a chance to see it. It's on Prime or Netflix. It's called Jury Duty.
I'm assuming, hopefully, is this a scripted TV series, or this is like real life?
It's filmed like The Office, But this one guy actually thinks he's on jury duty because he's the one person they keep out of the story. So it's really good because it gets wild. They keep doing like crazier and crazier things to see if he'll continue to believe it's jury duty.
My wife gets those summons so often, and I never get them, and she's just furious.
I got one a couple of years ago, and thankfully did not have to go.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't see taking that much time off of work. But if you made government more like jury duty, where people didn't really want it, I think then it would function. The problem is there's too much power that comes with it.
Where do you think that flipped in U.S. governance? Do you think it was ever? Do you think it was ever more along, using your vernacular, along the lines of jury duty? And if so, when do you think that changed?
With the founders, it definitely was. Like, you look at somebody like John Adams.
They went back to their life.
He was vice president, he was president, and he goes back and has a law firm.
Yeah.
Washington was somebody that he didn't even want a second term. People just demanded he do it. So I don't exactly know when that changes, right? But I think...
if you look at Biden, and he's been serving for 174 years. Mm-hmm. Pelosi, the same thing. I mean, it shouldn't be possible that you could be in politics for longer than your life than you've been outside of it.
Well, you look at somebody like Chuck Schumer in New York, he went right from law school into government. So it's like you have no life experience for the people you're governing. And I think that's a real disconnect between actually being in politics.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Yeah, I have concerns. I don't have the understanding of our government system enough to even hypothesize how it would play out. But I have concerns that we are approaching a place without some massive sweeping changes that it might be untenable.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that looks like either. A lot of people talk about civil war, which is a term I completely and utterly avoid. Nobody wants that. I don't even know what that
I think
would look
people
like.
also online like to get a little spicy with that too, because it gets some clicks.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the Charlie Cook stuff on the way over here. That's, some of the initial reactions from that were people using that same vernacular. I'm like, guys, come on. And gals, obviously. I just don't think they understand what that would look like.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody to have to experience that. And I don't know what it would take. Mm-hmm. I do ask myself, in the U.S., what would it take for us to get to that point, though? And I don't have an answer for that either.
Well, I think the thing that's hard is if you look at the Civil War, it was geographic, right? It was North versus South, and then you had kind of territories further west like Kansas that they kind of decided that what they were going to be a part of. But for us, it's kind of like, what would it be? Cities against country? Because at the same time, if you look at most of the places that are blue, they're just cities. Yeah. It's not really states. I was watching a clip yesterday. Arnold Schwarzenegger was talking about gerrymandering. And if you look at the state of Massachusetts is anywhere from 40 to 45% Republican. But they have no Republican people in Congress because of how the map is actually drawn. Yeah. So cities have really gotten to control states to the way voting's set up. And I think you have to wonder what would those lines even look like, because it really is cities versus country in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and what would be the spark that lit the fuse? If Civil War 2.0 were to kick off, why? What would be the reasoning behind that?
I don't quite know, because in 2020 it seemed like we were there. Like, it seemed like there was some if you look at the George Floyd riot, the George Floyd riots and a lot of those things, right? Like, you couldn't gather because of COVID, but at the same time you could, go out and riot and do all these other things. So it didn't seem like things were good at that point in time, but at the same time that also went away. So I don't really know.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't want to get anywhere near it, but yeah, those are questions I ask myself for sure. So what do you see, based off your knowledge of the time period in history, and the parallels to today? Mm-hmm. I've watched you talk on some other episodes about the parallels you're seeing and how, falls of certain empires, to use your words. Yeah. It's not as if this is a new template every single time. It actually seems to be a little bit more repetitive in nature than it does exploratory in nature. I'm just curious what you have seen in the past and what you see going on now, and how you think, let's say unchecked, uncorrected, where you think it leads. So
the most famous book that's written on the Roman Empire is Edward Gibbon's Decline and the Fall of the Roman Empire. It's obnoxiously long.
We talking like 1,500 pages?
Single space? It's 7 volumes. It's obnoxious. If you do the audiobook, it's like 100 and something hours. It's obnoxious. Oh my goodness. So he puts together about 200 different reasons on why Rome fell.
He dove in. He did not dip his toes. He cannonballed off the fifth story.
Okay. It was written in 1776 in a way that, it's very hard to read modernly because the language was, I don't know, much more beautiful, if that makes sense.
Romantic.
Romantic in a lot of ways. But if you take a look at that, one of the big things that he puts attention on is Christianity and what it did to the Roman Empire. Now, if you understand Gibbon, you understand that that's not a real reason. He was raised Catholic, and his father just makes him convert to the Church of England to get better political position. Mm-hmm. So he has to, in a lot of ways, make himself right. I don't think Christianity had anything to do with the fall of the Roman Empire. Now, the two things that I really look at are inflation and immigration. And if you look at any society we've had through time, those are the two major things you could point to for a lot of societies, right? As I mentioned earlier, 15,000% inflation by 284. So if money doesn't have any value and the people living in a place aren't from that place, well, what do they actually have allegiance to? And I think that's the thing you really have to worry about, because if you look at Rome's 3rd century, they have three major problems. A lack of central power. There's this time period called the 3rd century crisis where basically military commanders are declaring themselves emperor and fighting each other.
Sweet.
And that goes from 238 to 284.
That's a really long time period to do that.
But there's over 20 different guys that they can confirm were emperor in that time period.
Oh,
because it would be like months or weeks, or there'd be several at once.
But that's decades of fighting, though.
Yeah. So
get some.
There's a really bad central power problem. And it got to the point where when Aurelian is assassinated in 274, the guy that takes his place, Tacitus, doesn't want the job. He's like, please don't make me emperor. I don't want to be emperor. Because at that point in time, you're a target, right? Because the next person wants the job.
Totally.
So it becomes related to military power. So this lack of central power is a really big part of it. The other thing is they weren't very good at handling their borders because they were fighting each other. And since they're fighting each other, what happens in the 3rd century is half of the Roman Empire in the west breaks off and becomes what's called the Gallic Empire. Half of it breaks off in the east, which is called the Palmyrene Empire. Then in the north, you have the barbarians coming in, which are the Huns and a lot of other groups. And the Romans are just fighting themselves. And they're debasing their currency, fighting themselves. And so you have, this real issue with lack of border control. And then if you look at earlier in the 3rd century, since they need more military men, what are called barbarians had always been part of the Roman army, but what's called the auxiliary, meaning they would fight alongside of the Roman army, not as part of it.
Yeah.
But there's such a need for fighting men now because if you want to be in power, it's so important to have more legions. They start bringing barbarians into the legions. And then what you're going to have is one day a guy is a Roman commander, the next day he's a barbarian commander attacking Rome. So this is a real problem you have, is you just have this uncertainty of who's actually in control, what your money is worth, and who is actually part of your society. And when you look at, we don't exactly have congressmen and senators racing against each other. I don't think they're qualified to do anything like that.
Yeah.
But we do have a problem with controlling our borders right now. We don't know how many people are here or shouldn't be here or are here legally. And then we also have the problem of we're just spending money we don't have. And those are two things that really do destroy a society.
Yeah, I think, one difference, at least currently that exists, or when I was in as well in the military, is I think it would be really hard to have military leaders carving out smaller sections of the military fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more...
And I don't have any military experience, so I definitely can't speak to that.
Well, for one, it's a different era to begin with.
Yeah.
The speed of communication, the ease of, information flow, all of those things. I just can't imagine. What would this look in real time like? Right? So there's a Westpac commander, the Western Pacific commander. And let's say there's a South Pac, and I don't know because I'm talking about naval boats at this point. I can't fathom a world where those two, they're probably 4 stars, are like, okay, this is now my Navy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go, the East Pac is going to go attack the West. I don't see that happening. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's highly improbable. Probably because, again, of just the communication, ease of transferring information, and the instant that word of that got, it would just transmit so quickly. What you're talking about, people breaking off on the eastern and western sides, what are they going to do? Send a carrier pigeon? Send a dude chewing cocaine to go run back? But literally, the 45 days later, word makes it back. It's like, sorry, man, that guy's been on the march for 45 days. That's I'm going to call that impossible in the modern
Well, the
era.
structure is different though too, because
Yes.
if you look at it, we have American citizens that are being paid by the U.S. government to be in the army.
Yeah.
The thing that was different in Rome is if you look at the Punic Wars were in the late Republic, right, where Rome is fighting Carthage. One of the major things that changes after that, they go from citizen soldiers to a professional army, and a lot of these generals actually had private armies where they're the ones now paying them. So they have loyalty not to Rome, but to their commander.
Yeah.
So if the guy that is in charge is paying you, well, that does change how it functions, right?
For
Which
sure.
we don't have in our military.
Which I think is beneficial.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
There's like, there's private contractor, government contractor stuff. They pale in comparison in capability. I'm not saying it's not a real thing, but I think it's a good thing we have that different structure. The border one is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to catastrophize.
Yeah.
Because there are really few
Well,
things.
it can become a political talking point too.
100%. And there are a few things that are really a catastrophe, right? If we use, and this is one of the things I hate about both sides of the aisle trying to use these sticky words, like, because I hear this one more often, the fascist thing, like, or Nazis. Like, guys, if you call everybody a Nazi, nobody's a Nazi. Like,
exactly.
It's really clear delineation in the 40s, what we're talking about when it comes to the Nazi. Like, it doesn't work. So for catastrophes, you can do the same thing. If everything is a catastrophe, nothing is, at least in my opinion. But the border, I don't understand why so many people don't care. And I'm not out on a picket line. We're 60 miles from the northern border right now, right? Like, I'm not out there patrolling the northern border. But I'm totally supportive of immigration.
Yeah.
With an asterisk.
Yeah.
Legal. Through the proper channels. That is, without that, I think we are falling in line with having no idea what allegiances are there. And there are examples in the U.S. of areas that have far more allegiance to the places where these people came from than the U.S.
We look at what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, or some of the places in Minnesota.
I was going to use Minneapolis as an example. Or MSP, up there is a huge Somalian population.
Yeah.
Nothing negative to say about Somalians, but you can go and look and see what level of influence and allegiance there is in some of those areas. Mm-hmm. And it's clear, whether you dislike or like the current administration, it is very clear that a change in border policy can be effective when it comes to at least reducing currently the number of people illegally crossing the border. Yeah. Which I feel like lends a normal person to ask the next question, which is, why didn't they do that in the 4 years before? Mm-hmm. And why was the narrative that it's not an issue, that this is just a talking point from the right? I don't understand that. And I also don't understand how so many people just bought that hook, line, and sinker.
I also don't understand how people can think with it, right? Because then there's been one of the talking points on the other side has been, no person is illegal. Well, it's like, if you didn't follow the process to get here legally, sorry, but you are illegal, right? It's just how it works. So if you look at congressional representation, I heard Tim Pool talking about this not long ago. If you look at a state like California, for example, congressional representation, they changed the census under Obama, where they didn't want, I guess previously illegals were afraid of getting deported if they filled out the census. Mm-hmm. It made it not a crime to fill out a census and not be a citizen and be deported for that.
Okay.
And here's why it's interesting. Because those people never have to actually vote, but congressional representation is based on the census.
Oh, interesting.
So a state like California has 5 to 7 seats that it actually shouldn't have based on the population. And there was a congresswoman in Brooklyn or the Bronx last year that was talking about, one of the reasons she wanted immigration is because it will get them more seats. So if you look at that,
she said the quiet part out loud.
She said the quiet part out loud. So I think when you
dare you?
When you look at it, it doesn't even have to be that people will ever vote, but congressional representation is based off of how many people are in a state. So you have states with more seats than they should have based on that.
You know what I find fascinating too is, and I'll say this because I say it all the time, and it's interesting. Some people think I'm like a crazy right-wing person, and I'm like, absolutely not. I actually feel equally unrepresented by both parties. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm a normal guy from 2010, man.
Yeah, like I said, probably libertarianism that's bordering on anarchy. Not that I want anarchy. That's just what I'm talking about, the level of government involvement. A lot of the people who will say things along the lines of, well, nobody is illegal. If you ask them, let's say you go and you are trying to emigrate to France or somewhere in Europe, and you don't go there and go through the legal pathway, and you encounter authorities, what would you expect them to do?
Deport you?
That's what they answer with. So there's this, and I don't understand that thought process where that shouldn't be the case where you call home, but it's an acceptable outcome if you go somewhere where other people call. I struggle with trying to put that Rubik's Cube together.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the thing people don't understand too is how much that drives inflation as well, because I forget the dollar amounts, but they were giving a certain dollar amount. I think it was like, the thing that sticks with me is $10,000 to people that were coming in as like, you know, hey, get you started money. Or if you look at in New York City, I think is it the Roosevelt Hotels on 8th Avenue? But there's a dumpster out front with all of the new stuff that people are being given that they don't even want. They're being given so much stuff. So they're being given a phone. A lot of them are able to get healthcare. So that's a real problem because those do raise costs for everyone else. And
so the healthcare thing is an interesting talking point. And again, this kind of aligns with why the government is shut down right now.
Yeah.
If you listen to people on the left, they will say it is impossible for an illegal alien. Before I say an illegal alien, what is the correct term? So we can respect everyone here, Jeremy.
I have no idea.
For somebody who did not come into the country follling the
they were using other words. They were saying migrants, I think, was one of them. What was the other one they were using?
I'm going to use the term illegal alien.
Yeah, that works for me.
Let's just go ahead and use that one as our foundational term. And I'm not saying that to be mean, and I'm not saying you're a green space person. This is just the term that I understand, and I think most people do. One of the things that I'm hearing from those in politics on the left, and the reason that they're holding their ground is they are claiming it is impossible for an illegal alien to access Medicare, Medicaid. It
is impossible, but here's what's interesting. A lot of those people are cash pay, and they're never going to collect that cash pay, right?
Oh, so they'll just go in and say,
they'll go in, and a hospital can't refuse to service anyone. Now there's private like those like emergency centers and stuff. They can refuse to service
urgent cares.
Urgent cares. They can refuse to service someone, but a hospital can't refuse service to someone. Now they're never going to collect that service. So sure, they're not getting health care, but you're still paying for it because somebody has to pay those doctors.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's probably going to fall onto the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that would be an indirect way. God, and this is where it gets...
It's a web, it really is.
Yeah, and that's where it gets, I want to say dirty, but that's not the right word. It gets opaque. And the conversations don't ever seem to penetrate that opaqueness because that's not the conversation you're hearing in politics.
Well, because they're talking points, right? Because that's all politicians can think with.
Man, I don't want people to, if they are having a medical emergency, to not be able to receive the care that they need. But I agree. I also don't want to bankrupt our country. And I don't know the answer. If somebody's coming to me for these answers.
I'm not super happy with the healthcare system as it is. It's kind of wild to me. Like, you know, I pay for insurance for my employees.
Yeah.
It's nuts. As a small company with 15 people, what I have to pay for health insurance, and it's not even great insurance, right?
I've had a few people on. One of them, the most recent, was Brigham Bueller, who is the founder of Ways to Wells. And he started off as an Eli Lilly rep.
Yeah.
You want to talk about an interesting look behind the curtain? You know, just the budgets, the courtship, my words, not his, of the medical providers, the costs associated with it. And then I've had people on who are talking about, you know, the Affordable Care Act, which actually took the number of providers and drastically reduced them down, siloed them in, but then also this behind the scenes control of big pharma from the pharmacies and the premiums and kickbacks. And then meanwhile, like you said, you pay a tremendous amount of money on a premium and your service is trash.
Well, we went to medical sharing because at the same time, it costs us a little bit less and it's actually better. Because a lot of times what you're doing is going into an office as a cash pay person, and then the billing gets spread among all the other people that subscribe to the service. So it's actually, frankly, a better way to go.
Yeah. And then a buddy of mine, Scotty, owns CPI, which is a stem cell institute down in Tijuana. Mm-hmm. $200 for an MRI.
Yeah.
Same day service.
But is it government subsidized there, or how does that work?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And again, I never had him on or had these like incredible detailed conversations.
Yeah.
But I have very close friends who have gone there, and that was their cost. Like you could get in the same building, like world-class medical treatment, run your credit card for probably, and I have no data to support this, probably the cost of one of your monthly premiums.
We've gotten most of our dental work done in Mexico because it's kind of like,
really?
Just, yeah. My wife got a dental implant there. It's just a lot easier to get done, and it's high-end service, man.
How is that the case? I do believe we are still the greatest country on earth.
Yeah.
Am I biased? Absolutely. Whatever. I'm not talking shit about any other country.
Yeah.
I love where.
No, I agree.
Yeah. I love what we stand for. Are we flirting with the old FAFO theory? Perhaps. Do we need to make some improvements? Perhaps. But how could we allow our country to get to a place where a family was like, it's time to go to Mexico because we need dental work.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah. I get my contact lenses from Canada.
Yeah. Do they come in like a little maple syrup pouch?
They do not. It'd be cool if they did, though.
Do they give you any maple syrup with it, or is it just straight contacts?
It's just contacts.
And that's boring as hell.
But I guess when you look at healthcare, I don't think a public option is necessarily the right way, but I also don't think the way things are being done privately is the right way. And I don't know what the right solution is. But I think if you look at medical costs, the one actually driving them up is the one in the middle, and that's the insurers. Because a lot of times doctors are charging the prices they're charging because their reimbursements are, 50%, if that, of what they're actually charging. So they have to raise the price to charge that. My mom had a pretty bad stroke about 15 years ago. She was in the hospital for a month, and it was $2.5 million for her care.
What?
We negotiated that down and paid a much smaller amount, but it was $2.5 million for a month of medical care in ICU.
How is anybody supposed to pay that?
I believe medical debt is one of the number one reasons that people go into bankruptcy.
Indeed. Yeah. My mom passed from cancer in 2010, and my dad shut down his business afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah. For the same thing. I mean, it's protracted, long-term, inpatient, outpatient, hospital, like all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to do? It's
well, I guess the problem is then when you look at inflation, it's not just a one thing fixes it. There's all of these other things that cause this problem. So it's like, how do we fix the system? Because the system as a whole isn't working. And I thought Doge was a great idea.
Yeah.
I was really excited, and I've been very let down by the amount of spending I was hoping was going to get cut out of it.
Are they even Doging anymore?
It doesn't seem like it, because once Elon left, it was kind of like, whatever.
Yeah. I actually really, really liked the
I was
idea.
excited.
One of the hot topics on that one was when they started looking at the VA, and they were talking about a substantial reduction in headcount. People were up in arms about it because they immediately assumed that it would mean a reduction in care for veterans. Mm-hmm. But just like any bureaucracy, it's wildly bloated. And I have interfaced with the VA very infrequently, and my experiences have been good.
Yeah.
I have a vast network of people that I know who I'll say it's like 60-40. 40 pretty good, 60 some issues. But a lot of the times when it's on the 60% of the side, trying to get a hold of the right person, you have to get 15 signatures for whatever it is. It's the bureaucracy. And I would rather let people go from the VA and increase the quality of care for veterans than just maintain the headcount status quo, because everybody's afraid of going anywhere near veteran issues. It's the same thing, right? It's a talking point where the actual conversation is past the talking point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Doge, I I realized we were in trouble when Elon actually had a chainsaw in his hands. That's the point.
Well, and there was that salute he did too, which got us a little concerned for a while there.
Yeah, but then it's pretty funny to see the internet. I love that it lives forever. You can find a brief snippet and clip of variety of politicians making very similar movements. And again, guys, like, let's look at the intent behind this.
He got excited.
Are we saying that Elon somehow has been this Nazi sympathizer who has somehow worked his way over time, knowing he would get to the place that he did near the president? I also thought pretty early on that when those two blew out, which was only going to be a matter of time, that it wasn't going to be great.
But he also knows where his bread's buttered too, and I think that's the issue, because if you look at the Biden administration and the companies that they put money into for electric cars, one of them wasn't Tesla.
Yeah.
So he's looking at, well, they're shutting me out. Maybe this guy will let me in. It's just knowing where your bread's buttered.
Yeah, but then when you leave saying, hey, your boss's name is on the Epstein list on the way out on the platform.
How do you come back from that? It seems like it's kind of chilled a bit.
I don't know. But that would be a really good study in human dynamics on how you were able to come back, because that was like nuclear level. That was DEFCON 5.
Like, hey, I know I said you were messing with kids, but I didn't really mean it.
Yeah, and I know I said it to a few million people, and by that I mean hundreds of millions of people that retweeted that. That became its own ecosystem that spun off. Yeah, I guess that you just have to get to a place where you realize that anything a politician tells you on the campaign trail is likely not going to happen. Because that was one of the main talking points. Mm-hmm. We're going to come in here and we are going to take a broadsword to government and start clawing back. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. When it comes to inflation, if Doge, let's say they still existed, they had a charter, and I would be the first to admit that I think a lot of the stuff they needed to do was more suited for a scalpel and not a broadsword. So I think they really could have been effective, actually, if they would have taken their time. You know what I mean? Not change what they're doing. Like, if it needs to go, it needs to go. But sometimes let's just open up the tool thing a little bit, put the hammer away. Here's this tweezers. You know what I mean? Here's a splinter problem, and here's one where you need to chop off the limb. I think they would have survived a little bit longer. Had they been able to do that.
Well, they started out in the right place. They looked at what countries are we funding, right? Yeah. Because I think that's the major thing to look at. We're throwing so much money in countries that aren't America. Well, that's the first place you would cut.
And is that going to have, when we go back to talking about inflation, is that one of the more effective ways to start reducing that galactically high percentage of inflation?
It's a good start, right? Because it's one of the biggest places we're throwing things away.
I just mean the Doge model in general.
Yeah.
Taking a look at the systems and essentially exercising things that are not working but are just absorbing capital.
Well, I think it's, when you look at it, it's a three-pronged approach, right? First is you have to cut your spending, right? Because if you're not cutting spending, you're not going to fix anything. The other thing as well is you have to look at how the American economy's changed over the last 100 years. We don't really produce anything anymore. We've become mostly a digital economy in a lot of ways. You look at what's happened to places like the Rust Belt, right? We don't produce a lot of stuff anymore. So we need to have some sort of a economy upgrade where we actually build things here, which we've started to see some. There's been auto manufacturers that have started to talk about bringing production back here. And then the other is actually having money based off of something. But if we don't handle those three things, you're not really going to fix things. And I guess the question is it too far gone? I think is the thing you have to really look at.
The bringing production back, a buddy of mine, I don't have one of his. Oh, I do have. It's Montana Knife Companies.
Okay.
They're just down the road in Frenchtown. And he's building a huge facility. I think he's about 80% of everything being done in-house. But he's trying to bring manufacturing back. And some of the equipment he has to buy is very expensive. And it's interesting because some of it is from countries that are heavily tariffed. Mm-hmm. So he's looking at,
gosh,
I want to buy the infrastructure, but the tariff on this means instead of buying 4 machines, I can buy 2, which will reduce, you know what I mean? So he has that complication, which that'll sort itself out naturally. But I wonder if bringing production back is the right thing to do, or do we need to look in a completely, you know what I mean, or build something, the next American economy 3.0 or whatever it may be. And I don't have the answer to this, but building infrastructure is going to take time. I mean, talking with Josh, and many other people who are in those sectors, 5 to 10 years would be a reasonable timeline to bring these things back. Because
cutting spending could give us time, right? It could give us time.
Yeah, because even if Josh gets that stuff, let's say the machines, I think it was like a polishing machine or something like that, probably misspeaking, but that doesn't mean you have the person who knows how to use it, the knowledge base here, right? You know what I mean? There's this extended timeline before he can vertically integrate and have all those things. And I think having some level of capacity is a great thing. But is that a rear view mirror looking approach? Should we be looking through the windshield and looking at, you know what I mean?
Innovation maybe is what you're saying. But I think the other problem you have with that then is our education system, right? If you look at our education
super
system.
Good. What are you talking about?
What's that?
It's super good.
Yeah, it's not so great, right? They're kind of like hedge funds, the way they just kind of spend their endowments. But if you look at the Industrial Revolution, one of the things it changed in America is it changed education dramatically. You know, the First World War and then also the Industrial Revolution were two major changes from America because we needed two things: factory workers and soldiers. So because of that, you don't need people to be. That's why the classics are dying in a lot of universities, because before the 20th century, people would have actually learned classics. Our founding fathers, learned classics. When I went to grad school, Seton Hall had gotten rid of their classics department, so I convinced them to let me move all the classics professors into the graduate history school and get a classics master's that way. But a lot of schools have gotten rid of classics. That's Rome and Greece and human civilization things.
What's their reasoning behind that?
They don't see a need in it. They don't get funding for it like they do for STEM and things like that. So, but the problem is you look at what education has now, people don't have a worldview of past civilizations. They're not learning a lot of skills, if they're going for like gender studies or something like that. They're not learning skills they can apply in the world. And if you look at how people used to function before the 20th century, somebody wasn't so defined by what they did for a living, right? Yeah, they might be a welder or a blacksmith or something, but they had other things they did. They might be doing literature. They might also be trading in their local community. There was a lot more to what they did. They weren't so defined by their career. And now it's like, you go to school to be a lawyer, you're a lawyer. Or you get out and you go to school for something and there's no jobs in that, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that existed, which still exists in the trades, is apprenticeships. And apprenticeships are, interesting because they serve two purposes. First is to be able to decide if you actually want to do something, right? Like when people look at the seminary, they don't think everybody's going to it to be a priest. Part of it's discernment. Like, should I be here or shouldn't I be here? And an apprenticeship would solve part of that. The other part would be the experience. And if you look at universities, people are investing a lot of money for knowledge they're not going to use, and they don't even know if they need yet. So I think, honestly, even having an apprenticeship like after high school would make way more sense, because you'd either figure out what you want to do and where you need more information. But we don't have that system anymore unless you're going to the trades.
How old are your kids?
1.5, 4, and just turned 7, and I have a 4th on the way.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I have 3, and mine are in a different phase of life.
Okay.
But this goes to...
They're all homeschooled too.
Of course. Well, you only have...
Two, the 4-year-old and the 7-year-old are doing school.
You're probably making your 4-year-old read the Iliad, aren't you?
No, my wife doesn't do that with her now. No, she plays counting games and stuff like that.
Writing in cursive with a quill pen she fashioned herself. So my oldest is 22 now. We just went through birthday season. So I have a 22-year-old boy, a 20-year-old boy, and a 17-year-old girl. My 20-year-old is in Montana State going through an engineering program, mechanical engineering. This kid is... I need a blood test because he is way smarter than me in every respect. And then there's my oldest and my daughter. And what is interesting is their thoughts on education and the role and importance of education.
How so?
I remember and maybe my generation. How old are you?
38.
Okay, I'm 40, so I got a decade on you.
Yeah.
I'm sure this probably happened a little bit in your generation too, but it certainly happened in the generation before, like my parents. You have to go to school. You have to go to college and then enter the career field.
Yeah.
Of whatever.
My parents pushed that on me. My dad didn't finish high school, went back and got his GED later on.
Yep.
My mom didn't go to college. Big Irish family, so I was the first one in my family to go to college, but it was always pushed on me this is what you have to do.
I think that narrative is starting to change.
I agree.
And I think I'll be curious what it will be by the time my children have children. My daughter is in a welding program right now. She's already done a year of apprenticing in welding, and she's getting her basic certificate. She's got, I think, 6 to 8 months left. And I'm talking with her about the opportunities that are, I mean, you want to talk about write your own ticket?
Well, right now in the trades, absolutely.
And it's unbelievable. And again, there's the apprenticeship, which she did actually before starting the course, which has allowed her to accelerate a little bit and take some tests early because she already has some of the requisite basic knowledge. But now it's kind of like, sweetheart, where do you want to live? Do you want to live by the ocean for the rest of your life? Because you could go specialize in whatever metals are generally used when it comes to maritime stuff. Mm-hmm. And you'll never have to, I mean, go live in freaking Hawaii if you want to. There's always somebody who wants a fishing pole rod made on their, whatever it is.
Which is interesting because if you look at 30, 40 years ago, you'd be working in the local factory and that's what you'd be doing.
Yeah. But it's not that she doesn't value education. She sees the route that she is going down as equally, if not more valuable than the traditional route of academia. Like my wife, as an example, her mom was a teacher. Guess what was primary across everything?
Education.
School.
Yeah.
When the economy is down, take out a student loan, go back and get another master's, get another, and just layer it on top and layer it on top. And what you get at the end of that are degrees, which I think are probably amazing, and the knowledge that comes from that. But you also have an amazing amount of debt that you cannot erase or get yourself out from underneath, especially if there's no job in the field.
Well, and I run a PR agency, and I've interviewed people that have a master's in PR, and it's not very useful.
What does that even mean, a master's in PR?
You feel really good about yourself, but it's not usable.
Well, do they get any real-world experience in doing that along
They do
the way?
projects that are like what they would be like if they're in the real world, but no, it's not real-world experience.
Yeah, I made a model of the fucking space shuttle one time. It doesn't mean that Elon Musk is hitting me up for advice on this. You know what I mean?
But I think that is one of the major problems with schooling is there is no real-world experience, right? Like in high school.
What's starting to add to that is children, which it's amazing to me as I get older. I apply that term to people in their 20s now. Like Michael, who's 23. Whatever. We argue over how old he is. I'm not sure he knows. He's a child, right?
Yeah.
When I'm 60, you'll be a child at 38 years old. The narrative is shifting to, why do I want to do that? It doesn't net me what it is that I'm looking for in my life. And if that's got to scare the crap out of these institutions.
Well, here's the thing I'll tell you. So I was always terrible at math. My senior year of high school, I had a math teacher that was a retired electrical engineer for Jersey Central Power and Light. I learned math because he showed me how it worked in the real world. And I think that's one of the major disconnects we have between education is there's the theory of it, but there's no application of it. If you look at education, it has two parts, the theory and the application, but we skip application.
Do you think we do that because they don't feel like there's enough time? Or just the traditional structure of education never allowed for it?
I don't want to seem offensive, but I think at the same time, like let's say a business school, for example, the most MBAs are employed by the U.S. government. And I think if you look...
Really?
That's correct.
But at least they pass audits all the time.
But I think the thing is if you were, unless you were donating your time to do this as an extra thing you're doing, but if you're a business professor, right?
Yeah.
Would you be out running a growing business or would you be teaching in a school? So I think that's one of the things you have to look at is who are we learning from?
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp, one of the easiest ad reads I could ever do. I have been very open about my own journey in talking with counselors and therapists, the impact that it's had on my life. I'm never going to shut up about it because it has been so impactful. It's not magic. It is work. The work is done by you. The work is facilitated by the person that you're talking to. Not everybody that you link up with is a great match, whether it's in person or whether in the digital age it's online. And some people are geographically limited in who they have access to. This is where something like BetterHelp comes into play. If you have an internet connection and a device that can connect to it, you have the ability to establish a connection to a higher level of care when it comes to your emotional and mental health. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. That's millions of stories, millions of journeys, and behind every one is a therapist who showed up, listened, and helped someone take a step forward. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct, and they are all fully licensed in the U.S., and they have a therapist match commitment. BetterHelp does the initial matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy. A short questionnaire helps you identify your needs and preferences, and their 12-plus years of experience and industry-leading match fulfillment rate mean they typically get it right the first time. But if you aren't happy with your match, switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. BetterHelp works with over 30,000 therapists. Yes, you heard that correctly. It's the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally, and it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. If you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. What I'll end with is saying this. It's okay to look under the hood before the check engine light and all the other cluster gauges are flashing red at you. It's been immensely beneficial for me to get ahead of some problems in my life as opposed to playing catch up. Listeners are going to get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/clearedhot. That is better, H-E-L-P, help.com/clearedhot. Back to the show. Yeah.
It might be a little offensive to some, but at the same time, it's, the old trope is those who can't do teach.
Yeah. I mean, so I have precisely 0 seconds of college.
Yeah.
And
I have more college than I need.
Which is awesome, though. But also you have a depth of knowledge in a subject that is super fascinating to you. And I think it does have these echoes through time and repetitive, like you said, right? It may not repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Well, I didn't use it for 15 years, so it makes it look like I kind of planned it, that it popped up in the news in the last couple of years.
Yeah, but that's just the way life goes. You know what I mean? You never know what twists and turns. And but I talk with my real, I can't say understanding, but my exposure to somebody in the academic system is my wife. Mm-hmm. And she even will talk about, people who will go from high school then to college, then to a master's program, then to a PhD, and then into teaching. Mm-hmm. And
well, it's because you've always been a student, so it's a natural progression.
But then how can you? And I'm sure that there is nothing wrong with that cycle. But again, let's say we're talking business, which I would begrudgingly call myself an entrepreneur. I would be very interested in the CV of a business school teacher. Mm. And I would want to know, what avenues have you dipped your toes into the water? Where have you, not in a book, but where have you put your toes up on the line and worried, unable to sleep at night, staring at a goddamn ceiling fan, wondering if you're going to be able to pay your staff or have the money to be open the next day? Mm-hmm. Where did you learn these lessons? Now, do you have to have those to be able to teach the concepts of business? Probably not. But the instructor that I want to learn from is that person. And in that,
I would agree with that.
And in that cycle where you go through academia and then back to academia, I don't see how you have an opportunity to have that experience.
Well, I think as well, as I said, to me, a good professor in a business school would be somebody that's run a great business and they're just, hey, I retired and I want to give back. That would be a great professor to me. Somebody who has, I've had sleepless nights. I've had a lot of those things in my life.
Year one coursework is titled "Listen Up, Dipshits."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And the guy whips out a notebook from the 1940s and pencil writing and just goes alphabetically through all the mistakes that he's made.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how riveting that class would be?
That cuts your actual cost of time spent, money spent, and everything else. So that has a ton of value.
I would be riveted in a class like that.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any worse stories? Tell me what else should I not do?
Yeah.
They're like, let's talk about debt. You guys want to...
Hey, I remember, I started my company back in 2016. I remember those times where I had realized that ACH payments take 2 days. So I could pay several things at once because those ACHs weren't hitting right away if I could get the sales in.
Float. So you found the digital version of the paper float that I used to commonly do at, specifically, what sticks out in my mind is grocery stores.
Yeah.
Friday, float that sucker to Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't want to poo-poo education at all, but the value proposition has to be worth it.
Yes.
And I think they're struggling right now.
I agree.
To make, unless you, of course, come from, like, if you're going to be a brain surgeon, please, for the love of God, go to every course that you're required to go to.
Yeah, I don't want to die.
And perform well, right? Or an accountant, right? I mean, if you have hit those technical wickets, of course. But I look back at myself. 18 years old, let's say I had gone to college, which I didn't. I went straight into the military. I don't know what I would have studied. I likely would have picked, if I even attended class and didn't waste my parents' money or my own, I would have looked at it and reverse engineered it from the lens of what is the fastest way to get from A to B. Mm-hmm. And then I would have gone from A to B and then had to figure out what it is I was going to do beyond that and who I wanted to be. And I would have missed, I guess that's the trade-off of going into the world and not really knowing and getting some life experiences and touching your toes into some pools and figuring out what you do like and what you don't like. And it's one of the things, looking back at my younger self, is kind of how I try to be with my own kids. I have never asked my kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. I just ask them, what are you interested in? Yeah. And let's go. Like, you tell me what you're interested in, gas pedal. My daughter with welding, I'm like, first off, A, the very male-dominated field, so we're going to have a little talk about that. But B, if you're into this, like, let's go. Like, foot on the gas. Mechanical engineering for my son, I don't have a clue. We just went and saw his apartment in Bozeman, and he had some complicated math formula up on a whiteboard in his room, and to which I drew a massive penis on it, which my wife is like, real great. I'm sure his girlfriend appreciated that. I'm like, I feel like that was the missing digit in the equation. Yeah. You go up and around and you're going to cascade back down to solving the problem. But that's all him. That's not me. And then my oldest son right now, I mean, he's selling cars for a living and absolutely crushing it. Yeah. And working on communication, working on being told. I mean, the skills in that, being told no time and time and time again, day and day and day, like that is a skill in and of itself.
Sales is one of the best skills you can ever learn because it applies to everything in your life.
And he is largely an introvert, and you can tell he is crushed at the end of the day. Like it does not fill his cup up. Yeah. But he is forcing it through the day, doing well, getting better, getting reps, even though it's exhausting him. I'm sitting there looking at this like, this is going to change your life, kid. Mm-hmm. And he's doing a great job with it, man.
Well, I think the problem is you have people commit that much time to school, and you have someone like me that I went to school, I get out, I'm a teacher for 2 years, and I'm like, dear God, I hate this. I was not happy.
How quickly did you realize you hated it?
About a year and a half in. I lasted 2 years.
What were you teaching?
I was teaching history, honors U.S. history, sociology, criminology. I was teaching at a Catholic school, so you don't really need like much of a education background in order to do that, just, some of the course knowledge. So I got burnt out really quick, and I taught in a part in New Jersey where it was rich kids, but the inner city school just closed, which was the Catholic school in the inner city. So I had the two dichotomies in my class, and they were very athletic. So basically, kids didn't have to do their work because they wanted to play. It was really frustrating, right? And I got into teaching because I love learning. And for me, it didn't really translate. And I look at what I'm doing now, I'm actually teaching in a way that I actually really enjoy and people really enjoy as well. So I think sometimes you find that right thing, but you don't know it right away, right? Yeah. My mom had a stroke in 2013, and I'm looking at what I'm doing. I'm like, you could teach me how to pick garbage and sell it on Etsy, and I would do that because I hate this job.
Wow, that bad.
I sold life insurance for a couple of years. I was pretty good at it, but I hated the idea of sitting down and talking to people about, so you're going to die, you should probably buy this. So I tried lots of different things until, I started my company in 2016. And I think for a lot of kids, they're missing that. They're missing that idea to explore, to look around. You're committing to something at 18, taking on a whole bunch of debt, and you may never do it.
Yeah. And whether you do it or not, guess what's coming in the mail every month?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the interest rates are higher than your mortgage rate for most people.
It's so predatory.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten a few loans in my life at this point. And let me tell you what they ask, as I'm sure you know, debt to income ratio. Yeah. Where is that with educational loans?
Well, and they're compounded daily on student loans, which is insane.
Are they really?
They're compounded daily. So that's why people can pay them forever and never get out of them.
Yeah, well, they want you to pay them forever and never get out of them.
It's indentured servitude. It's feudalism come back again.
Man. So what other parallels do you see between the Roman era and... I like to bounce all over the place. Things come to me, and I'm just going to ask you questions because that's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Europe? Europe has got a very interesting, specifically, I'll say the UK, immigration issue going on right now. What are your thoughts about what's going on over there?
Well, I think the hard part is similar to what we're seeing, in Dearborn, Michigan, and also in Minneapolis as well. Would
you say they are ahead of us or on par with us on that particular issue? Probably as a country, we're behind them, but maybe in those particular areas we might be on track.
I think they're ahead of us in a lot of ways, because I can remember going to Europe in 2010, 2008, and it was, you're not seeing as many people that are from that country. Like I remember going to Italy and just seeing all the vendors all over the place, which are obviously from like Northern Africa or something like that. So I do think they are quite ahead of us in a lot of ways. The problem I think you're seeing there is, so many more things are paid for people there. So I think their economies are driving them to a bad place pretty quickly. So I don't know who gets there first. That's the question.
How's their debt looking? I've never once even considered.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Michael, how would we look this up?
Us is, here, it's like $30 trillion or something like that.
38? 37.
Because Thomas Massey has that pin that spins every day when it's covering it shows you that the speed the national debt's picking up.
Does he really?
He has a pin he wears, yeah.
Well, how would we look this up, though? It would be national debt of the UK?
Oh, UK.
You'd have to look nation by nation.
Go Great Britain.
Well, the thing they have going for them, though, is they still have the pound, right? So the pound sterling right now...
is their currency still tied to the sterling?
It's I think, 1.3 US dollars to a pound sterling. So dollar-wise, they're still doing better for us. They did not adopt the euro as like their top currency, because that hurt a lot of countries too, right? Because I remember going to... 4 or 5 years ago, I went to Budapest, and I remember like spending money there like I was a king, because our US dollar went so far there.
The UK's national debt is around 2.9 trillion. Those are rookie numbers.
Yeah. So we are going faster.
Well, we're also a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Can you fathom what it would be like in the US if our debt... Michael, please Google, when was the US national debt 2.9 trillion?
Well, what's the ratio to GDP right now, too? God. I think we're like so far over that.
Yeah. Let's guess before the results come up. When do you think the national debt in the U.S. was 2.9 trillion?
1970, maybe 68, somewhere around there.
Okay, I'll say 69. Closest without going over. Oh, yes, I won because I picked 1 year on top.
1989.
Okay, that's more recent than I thought.
Wow, we're going really fast.
Oh, can you imagine if our debt right now was 2.9 trillion? It'd be amazing.
Yeah. That could actually be paid off, like over time, obviously, but...
Do you think it's possible to get... What were we at right now, Michael? Like 37? Something like that?
Let me see.
35 to 37?
One of the theories was to drive inflation so we can pay the national debt off with cheaper money.
38 trillion.
That sounds like an idea I would come up with because I don't understand what we're talking about. Oh, yeah. Well, can't the printers at the Treasury just stay on for 24 hours and then we'll just use that?
Yeah, we'll just use that. And you know what I mean? We make more of it.
Yeah. What is it, Michael? 38?
38, yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay. So, yeah, we have a delta of $35 trillion.
Yeah. In 30 years, give or take.
What would it take to stop it in place so it doesn't go any higher?
Massive cuts. You know, it would have to be...
I mean, is that really what it comes down to at this point?
Yeah.
We just have to... Well, actually, I say this all the time. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It matters what you spend. So
well,
we have to reduce
it's cuts,
spending.
but it's also overinflated costs, right? Like, you know, the government pays way too much for things that an everyday business would not pay so much for. I'm trying to remember this. There was a thing a bunch of years ago about NASA paying for like a $20,000 screw or something like that. Do you remember this story?
Well, what did the screw do? Did it keep the space shuttle door closed? Because I might be on board
maybe
with a $20,000 screw.
But you know what I mean? Like government pays way too much for things that an everyday business would not pay that for. So I think even just reducing those costs would help us dramatically.
Yeah. I think the problem with that is there is so much pork baked into this stuff that, again, it goes, we have the people responsible for making this happen would have to vote against their personal interest to make this happen.
Part of the problem is the way appropriations work, though, because if you look at the way budgets are put together, they want to use, you know, each individual government body wants to use all their budget. Otherwise, they won't raise their budget next year. So it's driving us somewhere.
September was a great month in the military.
Really?
Well, the budget resets on October 1st.
Okay.
So I was a supply rep, and occasionally people would come up and say, you have 48 hours to spend over 6 figures. Because guess what happens if
you lose it?
Yeah. Well, I don't even actually know if you would because they never tested the
never tested the theory.
They never tested the theory because the theory was spend it or you will lose it. I never saw that play itself out. So the goal is to get your bank account to zero on the last day of September so the coffers can refill in October because that's the military goes off October.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fun to buy 400 pair of boots at a time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but if you remember when Matt Gaetz led the charge to oust Kevin McCarthy, one of the big things he wanted when we got a new speaker, which didn't happen, was he wanted individual spending bills. Because what ends up happening is they vote on this omnibus bill every year, which is basically everything to fund the government.
And I think that has to go away. It has to be
individual spending bills. Yeah. Because then you can actually cut things. If you're voting on, we have to vote for everything, or, you know, we don't pay for defense, well, what are you going to do?
I think it should be individual bills from every aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm trying to remember what it was recently. They got dumped, I think it was 858 pages, 24 hours before they were supposed to.
No one could read that.
No, so what they do is they feed it into AI, which is what you and I would do.
Yeah.
Which is only going to be as effective as the searching terms that you are asking to spit it out. Because I've done this with large documents to see how different I could get the results based off of the tools that I put into it. Mm-hmm. And you'll miss entire sections if you tell it not to look for it.
Yeah.
And maybe that doesn't mean anything to you, but to the people underneath you that you're supposed to represent, it could have a huge impact.
Yeah.
So they have.
Well, there's so many layers to that too, because you even look at, you know, lobbyists for different companies. If you cut lobbyists out, well, then your budget bills might shrink. You know, you look at Lindsey Graham, the guy always has a hard-on for invading every country in the world because he gets a lot of his money from government contractors, right? So I think, or military contractors. So I think that's what you have to take a look at is who's paying your politicians? Why aren't we voting on individual spending bills? But you have to cut, or we're not going to be able to fix things.
How do we?
Because we can't just cut pieces off of our penny, and then it actually costs more to make a penny than a penny is worth.
First off, why are we still making pennies?
That's a good point.
I mean, why are we still making pennies?
Yeah.
When was the last time you used a penny?
So I went to the store once, and I had one of those machines that crushes it and makes it into something cool.
Of course.
That's about the only use for a penny.
You know what my problem would be? I wouldn't have a freaking penny on me. So I'd have to go break $1 and get 9 pennies or 10 pennies, you know, and 9 dimes.
My wife always yells at me because I don't have cash on me either. So
what are you buying? I mean, I have a little bit of cash on me from time to time, especially if I'm going to.
Well, where I live, a lot of things are paid for in cash because there's farm stores and stuff like that.
Or service industry.
Yeah.
Trust me. Like the guy who cuts my hair, I pay him in cash.
Yeah.
And I don't tell him not to report it on his taxes, but I hope he doesn't. You know, it's not like they've been a real good steward with our money.
Yeah.
But if we only gave them 3% more, they could, Jeremy, solve global warming. That's what they say.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing I will tell you. This is a story as old as time. So in 251 AD, under an emperor named Decius, he's dealing with 2 major problems. You know, the one is the border problem we already talked about. In the 3rd century, it's a problem for a lot of them. But one of the things that allows Roman civilization to rise is something called the Roman climate optimum. It goes from about 200 BC to around 200 AD. And in Rome, they had a policy that started in the late Republic where every person would get a certain amount of grain. That's where the idea of bread and circus comes from. It comes from if you were a citizen of Rome, you would get a certain amount of food. Like it was basically grain. So the empire gets so large that that's a lot of people to pay for grain for, right? And in fact, in 50 years before, in 212, the Emperor Caracalla gives 30 million people citizenship overnight. He does this because he's bankrupted the treasury, and it allows him to now tax those people to refill the treasury. But now he's also responsible for feeding them.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some downstream consequences.
Oh, yeah. He's not thinking with that. He's thinking with I need money right now because I want to build this new temple or whatever it might be. So in 251, one of when you look at the mid to late empire, as more grain is needed and Egypt becomes a part of the empire, right, after the Ptolemaic dynasty is conquered in the 1st century, it becomes part of the empire. And most of the grain for the empire would come from Egypt. So the Nile River would flood every year. Mm-hmm. It would flood the delta, and it would make the delta very good for growing things. In 251, it doesn't flood that year. And then it'll go several years without flooding. So now grain prices double, triple, quadruple. So Decius has this great idea. He says, you know how we're going to stop climate change? I'm going to require all Romans to offer sacrifices to the gods because that'll definitely fix it.
Yes. Yes.
And he also then persecutes millions of Christians that refuse to sacrifice to Roman gods.
Oh, boy. They believed some odd things.
They did.
You know,
One of my favorite is an emperor named Elagabalus. He's a 13-year-old emperor that rules.
What?
Yeah.
That's a little too young.
The younger they are, the worse it is.
You think?
And he rules, I think around 221 is somewhere around when he rules. I don't remember the exact date, but it's around that time period. And he's the priest of a cult from Syria called Elagabal. And they basically dance around this conical block rock. And then he brings that rock to Rome and has a wedding for that rock to a statue. And he makes everyone come to the wedding. The rock is carried around in a chariot, like it's driving the chariot. It gets better, trust me, it gets better. He takes his hairdresser and puts his hairdresser in charge of the grain supply, because why wouldn't you do that?
Well, there's a lot of crossover.
And then he has orgies that he forces the Senate to go to, and they get pretty upset about this. It's one of the reasons that they kill him. He would advance men in political position by the length of their member, and he marries a Vestal virgin. So he's a very interesting teenager.
How late into his teenage years did he live? I'm thinking 14.
I don't think he made it to 20. So his cousin Severus Alexander will take over and rule for about 20 years after him.
I mean, what I get out of this story is that 13-year-olds are crazy. And I know that.
Can you imagine if you became emperor at 13?
No, because I remember myself at 13 vaguely, and all of my kids have recently passed through that age. Mm-hmm. And if I would let them decide what they wanted the world to look like, no.
Well, it's one of the reasons Commodus happens. Commodus, the son of Marcus Aurelius, becomes emperor at 17.
I mean, that's a little better, but still wholly unacceptable.
Well, and so Marcus Aurelius, in my opinion, gets more historical credit than he should.
Really? How come?
So the Meditations, he often writes about his own struggles in life, and it was his journal. It was never something that he intended to be published. He was somebody that was very into Stoicism, but he's the last of what are called the 5 good emperors. And the 5 good emperors had this policy of not giving their natural-born son to be the next Roman emperor. They would find the closest to them that was politically qualified and make them the next emperor.
Interesting.
So during this period of around 100, 150 years, Rome is very stable. Now, there's a caveat to that. None of them actually had natural-born sons, especially since one of them, Hadrian, was very well known as being a Greek boy lover. So Aurelius has a natural-born son. So that's a caveat to that is if he didn't name his son emperor, people would have thought it was weird. Mm-hmm. But in naming his child emperor, it breaks this 5 good emperors trend, and Commodus is, he takes the treasury and bankrupts it. He fights as a gladiator. He becomes extremely paranoid and starts killing any of the people around him. So teenagers don't really do well as Roman emperors. I might say that.
I would say probably a little bit too young. Why do you think Marcus Aurelius was so into Stoicism? So his name is very directly associated with it, and he's obviously not like the origin or who is the founder of Stoicism? How far back does this go?
Okay, Stoicism I don't know as much about as like an art. I know Epictetus was one of the original Stoic writers.
Yeah.
But Aurelius in his family, his mother was actually well versed in Stoicism and also different types of ideas like that.
Yeah.
So she's often for him seen as credited as the person that gives him these ideas he's raised in. He's also raised in the house of Hadrian, who he's adopted by, and he doesn't follow him as emperor, but he's 2 later. Mm-hmm. And in that house, he's also raised by a Greek tutor that also would have schooled him in Stoicism. So when you look at where that comes from, a lot of it would have come from that, but also the Meditations are when he's written on campaign. He's basically fighting barbarian tribes for like 30 years of his life. And the Meditations, a lot of it are him trying to deal with how he's dealing with everyday life. It wasn't something he intended to publish. It was basically him journaling.
I cannot fathom being in that type of warfare for 3 decades of your life. And being able to, again, he wasn't trying to create something that was going to be, I'm sure he would have no idea that it would turn into what it is or be viewed as what it is now.
But the people he was fighting were called the Marcomanni. They were like basically a German tribe that was coming closer to what's modern day Hungary, is where a lot of Aurelius's life was actually spent. He didn't spend most of his life in Rome.
That's wild. I think the journaling, if I had to bet, I would say that the journaling actually helped him probably navigate all the stuff that he was dealing with for sure.
I would say so, because you're actually playing out your thoughts rather than acting on impulse. So I think, to me, if you look at that as an action, it's much more sane than how a lot of other emperors are operating, who are operating by impulse.
Yeah. Crazy time period, man. It's do you think they valued life more back then? What was the life expectancy back in that time? 40s, 50s?
I don't know, to be honest. You did have a lot of guys that would live to be older. If you look at the word Senate, the word Senate comes from senex, which means old man. So these were people after 40. So there were people living into their 50s, 60s, and 70s. I would say if you're looking at when average people are living, 40 or 50 was probably pretty old at that point in time. But how did they value life, I think, it's kind of an interesting concept, right? Because for them, you only have like 10% of the population that's literate, and you have about 90% of the population that's just trying to survive. So for them, life was like, Romans had this interesting way they looked at their ancestors. Their ancestors they didn't want to let them down, and they would have these death masks in their house. They're always reminded of death, and they would be the death masks of their ancestors. So for them, they were looking at these lives before them, and they would want to pass them or equal them or whatever it might be. So they had this idea that there was a real value in achievements, and you wanted to surpass the achievements of those before you. So if you look at Brutus, who's the man that's often credited as being one of the main assassins of Julius Caesar, the Brutus family, I guess to kind of go back, Rome is 3 periods in time. It's a kingdom first, then it's a republic, and then it's an empire. The final king of the Roman kingdom, his name is Tarquin the Proud, and he's killed by a member of the Brutus. Well, he's not killed. He's kicked out of Rome by a member of the Brutus family. So for Marcus Junius Brutus to assassinate Caesar, well, he's fulfilling what his ancestors had done and preserving the republic. So for them, there was so much value in continuing the life's mission of those that came before them.
There's a lot of pressure associated with that, too.
It's a ton of pressure.
Yeah.
And many of them didn't live up to it. If you look at Cato the Younger, his relative Cato the Elder is a very famous Roman writer and politician. And Cato the Younger, who is the politician that puts himself against Julius Caesar, is not really as great as his relative. So he's trying to get political clout for himself in the way he goes after Caesar. So I think that's a ton of pressure, right? Because you have to not just live up to that, you're expected to exceed that.
Yeah. Man, the death masks in the house.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
But you were supposed to be reminded of your ancestors all the time.
I mean, I can remember the people that came before me without that shit on the walls.
Yeah, but do you have photos of your family in your house? Because they didn't.
For sure.
They didn't.
Okay, that's a good point.
They would have, paintings on the walls and things like that, but they wouldn't have pictures of their family. They would have death masks.
I would have gone with stick figures, I think.
Hey,
it's just the limit.
Easier to draw.
Yeah, and it's just a little bit less creepy than a death mask. Those are, whatever, to each their own. Man, what a crazy period in time. Man, 50, the average life expectancy of a man. I mean...
Well, and there were many that were living past that, but you have to remember they're probably the wealthy classes that are doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say, not the 90% that was illiterate and just trying to survive.
Thomas Hobbes, the famous philosopher, always said that life is nasty, brutish, and short. And he was referring to, lower classes and how their life was. And that would be often how it was for Romans that weren't born into the right family. Yeah.
How did you lateral this passion, obviously, for history into a PR agency? How did you start? I love it because one does not directly point at the other. Well, you said in 2016 you started your business. I'm curious how you came around to that.
So I had put history on a shelf, right? And I was doing all these different things, and it didn't really work out the way I wanted to. I ended up working at a friend's marketing agency, and I've been a podcast fan for a long time. Like I remember listening to Adam Curry's Daily Source Code back in, I think, 2007, 2008.
Was that one of the early ones?
Was one of the Adam Curry is actually the guy that invented podcasting.
Joe calls him the Podfather.
The Podfather, that's correct. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Adam a couple of times.
Really?
He's a very cool dude.
Did he have any idea of what he was starting?
It doesn't really seem like that. He was excited for the idea of have internet radio. I don't know that he would have had the idea it's as big as it is, but I still listen to his show that he's been doing for I think they just had 18 years. It's called No Agenda.
What episode is he on?
I think they just passed 1,800 episodes because they do 2 a week.
Smashing him then.
They do 2 a week.
Have you ever seen JRE #1?
I've not.
Michael, this is a piece de resistance.
I am still trying to get Joe to do Roman Empire.
Yeah. This is peak internet savviness. I would go to YouTube, Michael, and look it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a video.
It is done from a laptop.
Wow.
There are snowflakes, digital snowflakes coming cascading down.
But I remember, so podcasting back in like 2014 was like you had to use Skype, which was terrible, and it always disconnected you. And you had to use call recorder, and you needed 5 adapters to make your microphone work on your computer. Like, that was wild, man.
Yeah. Come on, Michael.
Oh my God. I have not seen number 1.
Hit play on that biatch.
Yeah.
This is legitimately what was shown to the audience.
Why are there snowflakes?
Nobody knows.
And then update to Twitter. Damn, this is slow as fuck.
Oh my God.
Go with bubbles. See what bubbles look like. Bubbles? Bubbles. We'll add bubbles and there. I don't like that either.
Oh my God.
Glow. Shall we glow? No, we shall not. Pixelate. Pop art. All these look gross. How about this? How about that?
I think that's enough, Michael.
That's
Good
insane.
idea.
That is the most popular podcast on earth.
Are you serious?
No, not that episode.
Oh,
But-
I was going to say, how many views
Actually-
does it have?
No, so that became, I don't know if Joe still is, but that became the most popular podcast.
Yeah.
Not this, obviously, this episode, because this is two idiots trying to figure something out.
But I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like, is
Yeah.
podcasts allow these long form conversations that could never happen anywhere else.
I wonder, I have to ask Joe next time I see him, if he ever even fathomed that. So that's him and Brian Redband literally changing settings in real time in the first episode. If it would become what he, or what it
What
has
does the
become.
background say? Make more friend or make more?
Make me hard.
That's great. Oh my God. That's incredible.
And now a lot of people credit him with like helping Donald Trump win
Yeah.
the election in 2024 because he sat down and just had a reasonable conversation with the guy.
Yeah. Well, and I make my living off of it now, and I never thought that would be the case, right? Like,
Yeah.
I started a podcast back in 2014. I had failed at all those different things, and I'm like, well, what do I need? But what we were talking about earlier, experience from those people that have actually done it.
Yeah.
So I had 10,000 listens in my first month as kind of somebody that was nobody. And I started getting people asking me for help, and I'm like, help with what? I just talk to people.
Yeah.
We ended up starting the company, and we've, to this time, I think we've booked our clients in almost 10,000 podcasts. We've had a lot of fun helping our clients like really get on great shows and tell a story. And I think the thing that's exciting to me is the world we're going into now, where this is really how the future will look. You're looking at legacy media. I think one episode of the Joe Rogan Experience now is more than the nightly lineups of MSNBC, CNN, and MSNBC and Fox News combined.
Well, to go back to the Trump episode,
Which is
think
incredible.
I think it did 20 million before YouTube lost it for
And
a
100
couple
million
hours.
in the first or second day. It was incredible.
Can you fathom how much CBS or Fox would pay for those type of ratings?
Yeah.
And it was just Trump's on there throwing F-bombs, telling his people, like, I don't care what's next on the schedule. We're staying here. like Joe, they would kill for that. What do you think it evolves into? This is something that I think about too, because
I think that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I think, and then going back to...
but actually though,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What we're doing isn't that far from that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yes, polished, sure.
You got a nice setup.
Why don't we have snowflakes? We could do real ones. We could get you could pull a string, Michael, in a little baggie.
Snowing last night.
Yeah. At the end of every episode, we could have like little balloons that come down or something. But point being, two people in this instance, in the episode as it gets into it, they just sat there and they chatted, right?
Yeah.
We are still kind of doing that. Different medium for sure. We have individual cameras and they're better, and we don't have bubbles or snowflakes.
Yeah.
But it hasn't evolved that much. I'm curious what you think it will become.
Well, I think the thing you have to look at, and this is going back to what Adam Curry has said, he said, I think the thing that legacy brands are finding is it's hard to monetize the network. What I mean is if you look at NPR and a lot of these, they tried to come in and use the same type of teams and costs and everything that they've done, and NPR has since downsized big time what they're spending on podcasts. So I think the old model is not going to be the direction this goes, where it's giant networks that are doing things. I think the thing that's really cool is how person-driven it is. So I think that's what's interesting to me. And I think there's a lot of different things like even, I guess to bring kind of the Bitcoin technology back into this, maybe people having NFTs and things related to shows, right? So I think there's a lot of ability, especially since you own most of the IP, to be able to control it. And I think you lose so much of that with a lot of these large legacy networks. So, and so there's so much freedom in that. You even look at Rogan's first Spotify contract versus a second. Spotify had to give him a lot of what he wanted in the second one because they realized they were missing so much. So I think the amount of creative control and ability to reach other people, there's nothing else like it.
He is still under contract on Spotify, isn't he?
Well, he had a second contract, I believe, right?
So the first one, though, because
now he's back on YouTube and a lot of
that's what
places.
I was going to say.
They changed the terms.
I bet he's still got an excellent check.
Oh, I can only imagine.
I would like to one day imagine. Actually, I don't even understand money like that. You know what I mean? I would look at a check that size and be like, I'll buy 2 steaks instead of 1. I mean, I don't know. That's about as sophisticated. Actually, I would have a fleet of helicopters if I had a choice. But yeah, I think he is still under. I just saw him post on Instagram today, and he said it is live on Spotify and then on all other channels. So I think it's not exclusive.
Well, it was I believe it's a second deal, though.
His first 3 was exclusive.
And now it's not, which is interesting.
That is really interesting because essentially
there has to be some kind of a rev share on that. I don't see how they'd allow it to happen with them missing out on everything.
Yeah, because it goes back to the way, because I don't consume it on Spotify.
I don't
Most of the time when I'm driving, so I have
people give me a hard time because I still use Apple Podcasts, but
I do too. But is that fading off?
I don't really think it's fading off. There's been a lot of the other smaller apps that have disappeared because there's hundreds of different apps, but I've always used Apple Podcasts.
I have too because it's native to the iPhone I have, and most of the podcasts I consume is either when I'm driving or doing manual type labor. Yeah. So the video aspect is not important.
I've never watched a video podcast. I've always listened. It's usually like I'm doing a house project or I'm at the gym or something like that.
I'm the same. Yeah.
I binged on this whole series about medieval history while I was painting rooms at my house right before my last child was born.
Dark and gloomy, and there's just a guy with a scythe over the...
Dan Jones, you ever get a chance to check him out? A very interesting historian.
Yeah. All right, so you had the idea... We should... actually, so people understand this.
Yeah.
You and I met indirectly.
Yeah.
Because people who work for your brand reached out and pitched some guests for the show.
Yeah.
And my litmus test is always, does this person sound interesting? If they do, awesome. Let's go. It's one of the cool things about being a host is, I guess you could play towards your bias if you want. I try not to. I just literally look at it and is this person's story interesting? It's almost like the same as the if I was in college, what would I care the most about? I would care the most about the person's CV and experience in the world.
Yeah.
I'm kind of more interested in catastrophic failures because that's what it seems like my life is just a rolling.
You can learn a lot from that though because you can cut your learning curve.
Yes, and I love the story arc of, let me tell you how bad it got and what I did to grow out of it. Right?
Yeah.
This recovery arc, and I think there's something to be learned there for almost everybody. But you've had a couple people reach out who have come on the show, and then you reached out directly. And so that's indirectly how we met, was through your agency.
Yeah.
But how did you grow it over time? Because I'm assuming it was just you when you started.
Yeah.
Was it the idea of helping people get onto shows, or what was the original idea of the business?
So we started with producing podcasts for people first, and we kind of talked about what the technology was like in 2013 and 2014. And what we found is a lot of our clients, they liked having their own show, but they actually really liked just going and having conversations more. So that was part of our service. We ended up cutting that off and just working on getting our clients on shows.
What made you go that particular path? So you're talking about you would get the raw files, the audio, all that stuff, and you would just push them to finished product?
It was super cost prohibitive at that point in time because, we're going back, 10, 15 years ago now. So it's the cost
before I even got started,
the cost was so much higher. And now if you look at it, you get 3 or 4 AI apps, you can have a podcast pretty quickly. But the cost was so much higher then that people wanted to just have conversations. And the thing that I have going for me is I've been in business with my wife for 10 years. And her degree is in PR, and she's very good at what she does. So
who is the boss between the two of you?
Me. Though, if you ask my employees, she might be the boss.
It's a tough one to navigate.
She's the boss at home, I'll say that.
Who sits on the org chart at the top?
She handles anything family related, I will say that.
Yeah. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah. It's worked well from the perspective of we get to travel a lot together. We've been to, I think, 15 or 20 different countries.
That's for podcasting.
For podcasts, I've done talks. I did a talk in Ukraine in 2019. I've done talks in London. So I've gotten to do a lot of really cool stuff. I did a speaking tour across South America in 2015, which is pretty cool. I went to Peru.
Really?
So I've gotten to do some really cool stuff related to podcasting. And so from that, we've been able to go to some cool places. I spoke in Thailand 2 years ago. We got to bring my kids with us. They've never been to Thailand before. We have half of our employees are in the Philippines. We got to go hang out with them for a day. That was pretty cool. So we've gotten to do a lot because we work together, right? Like we're going to Vegas next week.
What are your thoughts on, because now, like you were talking, you were doing this long before I ever started. Now the barriers to entry, I think, can only be described as low. If you from
extreme, if
technology
if people only knew to put a thing into a thing to make your computer work, it was insane.
I mean, this is all you do. You got a podcast if you got one.
Well, and they even have Adobe has an app now that you could take that file with bad miking and it makes it sound like you're on a microphone. Like, it's insane.
And with that, there is an explosion of podcasts.
Yeah.
Which I want people, if you have an interest in it, go to town.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, what should I do? And I say, if you're interested, give it a try. If it's challenging, don't necessarily give up just because it's challenging. But I will tell you, it is more work than you think it is.
Yeah.
But it's super enjoyable. Like, I love sitting down and having conversations and relying on Michael to partially do his job semi-well. Notice he doesn't even have the microphone near him.
So I don't accidentally make noise into it. It's actually better.
Why he's surfing YouTube over there.
Yeah, while he's surfing. He does it under my account, so I can check later after the show what it is that he's looking at. And
yeah.
I probably have a felony record.
All inappropriate.
Yeah, I know. Felony record. The FBI agent's waiting outside to cuff me. But I have heard that about 1,000 podcasts are started per day.
That's insane.
That's flooding the zone, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I was curious your thoughts on the just rapidly exploding ecosystem.
Well, so when you look at podcasts, when I started, there were 250,000. Now there's, an estimation.
250 million.
Now there's Spotify likes to say there's somewhere between 4 and 5 million.
That checks out.
So that's about what we have. But the problem you have to look at is, I think only about 20.
No way. Approximately 27,000 new podcasts are started daily.
This shocked me so much. I had to bring it up.
No way.
I don't know if this is
Hold
right,
on.
but
could this be correct? It doesn't mean that they keep doing it.
Well, because there's this thing called pod fading, and that's where people before 20 episodes quit, but they keep paying. They keep paying their hosting, so it's kind of like still out there like a ghost. And
hit it, Michael. 27,000 a day.
That's insane.
It's at 82,000 every
high.
3 days. Okay,
so 0.52, so I'm pretty close.
In the U.S. alone, 55% of the population, about 158
But it's like the top 5% are responsible for like 95% of the traffic, if not more.
Oh, I was going to say it's probably the top.
Well, the last stat I heard, and this was last year, that the top 5% were shows that get 100 listens or more.
What?
So
that's a very low bar.
It's a very low bar, but that means that 95% aren't even having 100 listeners.
Okay, here's a good one. 86.1% of people prefer to listen. Okay.
That makes sense.
Average podcasts usually last between 20 to 40 minutes. That's going to depend on your genre and whether or not you're telling a story or a narrative theme.
I love Dan Carlin's show. They're like 6 hours.
Yeah. And again, that's what you're into, right? Because that guy is so passionately committed to what it is he's putting out.
Puts out like one a year now.
Yeah. Keep scrolling down, Michael. This is fascinating. Yep, the growth curve for sure. 3 days. How many people listen?
And I guess the question is like, how many of them keep paying their hosting, right? Are they using like Spotify's free hosting or something?
This is interesting. Approximately 584.1 million people worldwide listen to podcasts in 2025. That is, what are we at? 8.5 billion people?
That's a very low percentage of the population.
Yeah, it's a very, very low percent. But it's a 6.83% rise year over year.
Well, there's Edison Research does this report every year called the Infinite Dial, which has some really good statistics on podcasts. And they look at every industry, but they look at podcasts specifically.
1 in 3 listen on YouTube. 26% prefer Spotify. 14% choose Apple Podcasts. 27 use other platforms.
Well, because there's so many other apps out there too that they just basically piggyback off of Apple's feed.
Yeah, they're just scraping the RSS feed. It populates. Okay. 27,000 a day?
I had no idea that.
First off,
huge.
we're in the wrong business. We need to be in a hosting business.
Yeah, but can you imagine the amount of bandwidth you have to pay for?
Yeah, but say you're charging these people even just $10.
Well, Spotify right now, they have a free hosting level that they have no limits on what you can do, and you can just buy into their monetization model.
I don't even know what I pay Spotify, if anything, to host this podcast.
We used Libsyn for years. They were
I use Libsyn as the main one because podcast has their own backend called Anchor.
Okay.
So it's a separate upload. There's like 3 different portals. You have I use Libsyn that's what scrapes the RSS feed. Then I upload to Spotify through Anchor, YouTube, and then X. So it's 4 different tabs I essentially open up.
We've been using a company called Podetize the last 2 years. We took our feed and moved it from Libsyn over to them because they do dynamic ad insertion, which is pretty cool.
Libsyn does that as well.
Do they? Okay, they didn't at the time when I ended up moving.
I honestly think that they're playing the same game everybody else is. What is our competition doing? And the next thing you know, so every leap that is made, they'll trail a little bit unless they're the initiator of that leap.
Yeah.
But then if they are the initiator, within a few months, they're all going to be doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at this point, the baking in of the ads, Anchor does this, or Spotify does exactly the same thing. YouTube will do the dynamic insertion. X is the only one that actually doesn't, that I know of.
At the moment, but you got to think they're going to do that at some point.
I would think so. But right now, you can just upload, I think it's a megabyte or a gigabyte size, not necessarily a time thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so for every episode, I open up 4 tabs and just do the uploads, and we're good to go. I would have Michael do it, but I don't trust him.
Man. Poor guy.
Leah constantly asks me why I don't have you do it, by the way.
I know. I've offered multiple times.
I'm aware of your top-end performance.
My lack of skill, just in general.
Well, I have a gigabit connection at home, so you upload that thing in 10 seconds.
I don't have a gigabit connection at home. It doesn't taste anything. 10 seconds.
They don't have that out here?
We have running water and electricity, but slower internet than you're going to have.
We got a fiber optic co-op a few years ago, which has been great.
Good for you. I bet you that is just screaming.
Oh, it's a gig up and a gig down. It is fast.
That's impressive. Yeah, we don't have anything like that out here. Now, it's an interesting ecosystem. I constantly am trying to think about, not because I want to make a change, but I just kind of ponder what it will be.
Yeah.
I think the connection between 2 people, like the remote stuff, is never as good as in person.
It's not quite the same. It isn't. I've done it that way for years, but I like doing in-persons more, so I always jump at the opportunity.
And so sharing a physical space, means you'll probably have a studio of some kind. I mean, what does that limit you with? Can you play with backdrop? Could you play with lighting? You know what I mean? What does that turn into?
There's a lot of different ways.
I guess. I just don't know what any of them are. So
because I think there's the interesting things are what people can do off the back end of them with building communities and things like that. So I think there's all these different ways you can monetize, which creators couldn't do in the past.
Chris Williamson does a good job of that with his daily newsletter and all that stuff. Plus, he's British, so everything he says makes it sound like he's
smarter.
Smart. Yeah. He actually admitted to that, too. He goes, I'm not that smart, but I sound smart because I'm British. Like, you son of a bitch. He's a good dude. His success has been crazy to watch. Yeah. Because he'll openly talk about, I uploaded episodes and I would get 0 downloads for days.
Wow.
And now I think he just crossed the 1,000 episode threshold. It is like into the billions.
Well, it's interesting because podcasting is an interesting thing, especially like back in the day, you know what I mean, as well as you don't really get more now, I would say, because there are so many more ways to connect with people, but there wasn't much of a feedback loop. So you didn't know early on if it was going well or not going well.
Oh, it was just transmit only.
Yeah, it was like you're putting stuff out, you're getting kind of your stats and stuff, and eventually you start getting emails in and you start hearing from people. Or I was at the gym one time and some guy's like, hey man, I listened to your show this morning. I was like, hi, I'm getting changed. So like...
Awkward.
It is a little awkward, but like it's kind of interesting when that feedback loop starts to come back. But you know, in the early days of podcasting, there wasn't a ton of that. You'd have to start to pick up some speed.
Yeah. I can see, what did you call it? Pod fading?
Pod fading. It's when you don't get to 20 episodes.
I love it. I love just the addition of pod to the beginning of it and it goes away. Yeah, you got to stick with it. I mean, the advice I give people, and I'm a nobody, right? Like I enjoy what I do. I'm able to make a living off of it. And what I tell people is it's going to be more work than you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
It'll probably be harder than you think it's going to be. And you have to be consistent.
Well,
the consistency is, I think, a large portion of it as well, especially if you're going to build a community around it.
Well, one of the like when I'm talking to people that are about doing it, like a lot of times they're like, oh, well, you know, I'm thinking of doing a podcast. I want to think of how to monetize it. And the thing I always tell
cart
people,
before the horse, right
I always
there.
tell people, be willing to do this for a year
Yeah.
to even decide if it's working or not. Like, I think that's what you really have to do.
Yeah.
But people are often trying to figure out, well, how do I make money off this thing right away? And I just think it creates poor content, right? And you're going to quit by 20 episodes.
I think I did 2 or 3 years before an advertiser reached out to me because I didn't actually realize it was something that you could monetize. It was just me off in the wilderness, not physical wilderness, but metaphorical wilderness, just messing around.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously slowly that evolved over time, but yeah, I generally can hypothesize as to how their journey is going to go.
Yeah.
Within the first 5 minutes, they want to know about ads. And
Those often aren't great conversations.
they're not great, and I am appreciative that whether they know it or don't, they are displaying to me their motivations up front. But yeah,
But you got to be willing to put in a lot of time before you realize to cut it or not cut it, right? Like I tell people at least a year.
Yeah, and I think you have to have some semblance of two things. One is who you are, and the second one is what type of content do you want to put out?
Yeah.
Because if you don't know who you are, I think you'll be a little bit like a flagpole in the wind, and that goes against the consistency component as well.
Well, but I think as well, it's also realizing that it can change too. I think that's a really big component, but I think there's a lot of people out there that teach about podcasting. You're like, well, you have to know who your avatar is, and you're going to give him a name. It's Jimmy, and this is what Jimmy likes, and this is what he does. And I find that so strange because to me, I look at what interests me, what is something that I feel like I can add value to other people from. And for me, it's changed a lot over the years. I was talking to, best-selling authors like Grant Cardone and, former NFL guys and stuff. And I got bored of that, honestly. So I do a lot of history-based stuff now just because to me, it's really interesting. And I've been getting better feedback than I got before. So it's just about, can we have a great conversation that has value to other people?
What's been the key to getting people on shows? You said you've booked like 10,000 episodes.
Yeah. So you mentioned like the thing that interests you is like, does this look like a good conversation? And that's, I think one of the things that differentiates us from a lot of other people that do what we do is as a host, I'm remarkably picky, if that makes sense. So we're always trying to figure out.
You should be.
You have to be because this is your platform you've built. And people will be like, well, what is a good guest for me? Like, I don't know. I'll let you know when I see him. So oftentimes we're looking at.
It's a good answer, by the way.
Well, it's you know what I mean? Because I have to decide. Like,
it's a true answer.
People I don't know.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, you covered this, so you probably like this. And it's like, oh, God, I hate that. I don't like business coaches. But we're looking at what is the differentiator and what can be a really great conversation for the host. That's the thing we're really taking a look at. And there's a lot of people that, do kind of put the cart before the horse and they're worrying about their ROI right out of the gate. Those aren't going to be typically people that work with us because we want to put people that have put the conversation first. So that's what we're really looking at is what makes this person unique? How are they different from anything else out there? And what's the real value in the conversation? There has to be value in the conversation or I'm not going to be able to get you booked on anything.
In this journey of getting people booked, there's got to be a few just catastrophes or horrible conversations. Let's talk as broadly as you want, but let's hear like the top 3, like, oh, that sucked.
In terms of like hosting or
just
clients?
like you try to, both. Or you get them together.
My worst conversation of all time, and I didn't publish it, and I don't even remember the guy's name. Somebody else pitched him to me. I'm like, that sounds interesting enough. He's outside. I can hear airplanes going overhead.
Oh, is he like screaming into his phone?
He's screaming into his phone, and it was kind of like when you go to the Burger King drive-thru and it's like, do you remember that Dane Cook joke?
Yeah.
You drive through and it's like, I want Whopper. It was like similar to that. And then I get to the end and I try to still make it nice for him. Like, so where can people find you? And he goes, Google me. Like, I'm just trying to find out what your website is, man.
Yeah.
So like didn't publish that one.
How about with clients? Have you had just some train wrecks?
We've had a few people where it had more value to me to give them back every dollar they paid to me than to let them to verbally abuse my team anymore. There's been a few of those.
Really?
Well, you're getting media. You do get divas, right? Everybody that thinks that they're the most important person on the internet. And the people that do really well are the ones that are doing this because they want to give back and help. The ones that are doing this because they want to be famous, they're train wrecks. And those have not been great conversations. So we've definitely had a few of those that we've had to tell to walk.
Hey, can you sniff them out earlier now?
We know the right. In my sales conversations with our discovery calls, we know the right questions to ask. We know the correct questions to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not worth it, man. No amount of money is worth a certain level of headache.
We had a guy once that he got through his entire program and then tried to get a refund on his full program that he was happy with, and then went to the Better Business Bureau. And then we basically gave all our documents to the Better Business Bureau, and they shut him down. It does happen. There are people out there that don't want to do even exchange.
Yeah. Yeah, people are a mixed bag. People are...
Well, when you're in business, you see all kinds of kinds, man.
Unfortunately, you do. How do you think you'll continue to evolve your business?
Well, we've started doing more production work again, just because
Really?
the cost has changed so much that we've been able to offer people a lot more. So we've started doing that again in the last year and producing shows for people. In terms of, what we're doing, we're trying to develop higher level programs and things like that, but it's always just a great conversation. And I think if you're building great conversations, it's going to continue to build,
Yeah. Yeah, at this point, it's almost, from somebody who creates content, are you using the best equipment that's out there? Are you reducing time and workflow through, you know what I mean? Like it's microscopic as opposed to, now we use an IMAX camera,
Well, I don't even do that. Like the thing I've changed in my home studio, I just use my MacBook with an iPhone on continuity camera. And it's actually pretty darn good.
Well, it's because the camera's
with
on
the
these
right
things are
lighting.
ridiculous.
I use one umbrella light. I have my Roman Empire map behind me,
Yeah.
and I just use an SM7B like this one, and we get a really great shot. It doesn't have to be expensive to get a great shot now.
These microphones, these SM7Bs, I mean...
I've been using the same one for like 10 years. They go through the war, man.
I mean, I'm waiting for the SM8B or whatever it is, but...
You ever travel with them?
No.
They always get pulled at the airport, so I just pull them out now because they think they're tasers.
Really?
Yeah.
What does this thing look like on an X-ray?
Apparently a taser. I don't know. They literally. So I just literally take it out and put it on the belt now because they always take it out.
Do they? If you didn't do that, do they at least recognize it when they pull it out of your?
They
bag?
pull it out. They're like, oh, it's a microphone.
Okay, interesting.
I did have the TSA steal my external hard drive once. I don't know why, and I never got it back.
Was that before or after the show?
So it had about 500 episodes of shows on it that I'd already done and published, but I still like to have backups, but did not get them back.
Oh, that's unacceptable.
Just got a letter in my bag that they had went through my bag and taken it. Don't know why.
Awesome.
Just had podcasts on it.
Osama bin Jeremy. Probably thought you were Al Qaeda. They were just checking to make sure. Yeah, the podcasting thing, 27,000 a day. My head
That's
is still
insane.
going.
I had no idea it was that big.
Hosting platforms are making a lot of money.
Oh, of course they are.
I mean, good for them.
Yeah. Especially when they're in ad buying and everything else.
Yeah.
Because they take a very hefty cut when they're doing insertions for you.
The data, back-end data is interesting. I feel like there is what the creator gets, like what the Libsyn back-end will show you.
Yeah.
And then I feel like there's a much more parsed and rich upstream parcel of information that they don't share.
Yeah.
Because it has value to them.
Yeah.
It's a pretty dirty ecosystem, actually.
Well, for us, we don't even do straight ad buys. We do a lot of affiliate deals because we make way more money with promoting products on the show that I actually use and enjoy.
So what do you mean by an affiliate deal?
So one of my favorite products is, as I mentioned, I went to Peru a bunch of years ago.
Yeah.
Ate some ceviche, got something called liver fluke. If you ever get a chance to Google it, there are these weird little things that eat your liver. And I had all these weird body things going on.
Okay.
So I found this naturopath called Dr. Dean and started using his product to get the parasites out of my body. I think it's the best freaking product I've ever used. So
Yeah.
he has a great affiliate deal. We promote his products on the show. We make really good money with promoting his products.
So if they go through like your link, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we tend to do a lot more stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm not the biggest podcast out there. But
Yeah.
that tends to work really well for us.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Because
interesting.
the CPMs on a lot of these are just really, ugh.
Yeah. And for the listeners, that means cost per melee, which is basically a dollar amount that you charge per 1,000 downloads. And
They're pretty low. It's like $15, $25 a lot of times.
it really depends on who you're working with.
Yeah.
And if you're going through a broker or doing it yourself, because anybody who touches it is going to get a scrape off the top as well. Yeah. Those are, again, I have had people in the first 3 minutes, they're asking about, they want to start a podcast. I'm like, tell me about CPM.
Worry about that 2 years from now.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, a successful podcast is one that 30 days after publishing has 100 downloads. CPM, cost per melee, per 1,000 downloads.
You need 10 episodes then. So maybe you can like share it across those 10. I don't know.
And I try to tell them, I actually do the same thing, like a year time, you need to build it first.
Well, you also don't know your own voice right away, right? Like
Yeah.
it's me as a host, I've changed so much in the way I communicate.
Yeah. What's your favorite character from the history that
Favorite
you
character from
dug
history?
into? And the time period, obviously, that is your genre.
So I guess here's the problem. Like, yeah, my background's in the Roman Empire, but I also go down rabbit holes. So right now I've been going into Tudor England and things like that, and looking at the War of the Roses. So I've been reading this book by Dan Jones called The War of the Roses. So like Henry V is an extremely interesting character, or Edward IV is interesting. But if I had to look at my favorite historical character, Cesare Borgia, he is the son of Pope Alexander VI. And he is the first cardinal to decide he doesn't want to be a cardinal anymore. And he becomes something called a condottiere, which is kind of like a mercenary captain for hire. And
it's quite a career field shift.
He takes the papal army, unites it with the French army, conquers all of Italy, gets syphilis, and loses all of Italy, and then dies. But he's a very interesting character.
I mean, at least he spent the time that he had being busy.
Yeah, he makes it into his early 30s, has to wear a mask from all the syphilis in the last couple of years of life, but he's a pretty interesting guy.
Okay.
The Prince by Machiavelli, I think chapter 7 of The Prince and a lot of The Prince is actually about Cesare Borgia, because Machiavelli says that Borgia was the perfect prince, but he did not plan for his own sickness. Had he done that, he might have been the best prince.
Well, I don't think they had a cure for syphilis back then.
No. It was called the French disease in that point in time because they believed it came from the France in the New World. Because this is right after this. Alexander VI is actually the guy that divides America, the early America, between the Portuguese and the Spanish in that point in time.
Yeah. After
the French disease.
Yeah, I mean, what did they know at the time? I wonder what old Marcus...
Well, mercury was one of the first treatments for it.
Which I don't believe is a very healthy vitamin.
No, not
or
very
vitamin,
good.
As they would likely call it over there. I wonder what Marcus Aurelius would think if he was dropped off at Central Park just for a day. Just go cruise.
He'd be alarmed by all the homeless people, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, like, imagine the concrete jungle. It's like, I'm sure we'd be the same if we were to fast forward, 2,000 years into the future, if our planet even makes it that far because we're idiots with nuclear weapons. But
we've lost a lot of aesthetics, though. I think that's the really interesting thing when you look at their construction versus ours, is we've lost, skyscrapers, sure, they're big and they hold a lot of people, they're ugly as hell.
I would agree.
Like, we've lost the aesthetic quality of a lot of things. And I think that's the thing that's interesting. You look at...
Do you think that's because the pace of life is different?
I think so. We have to build things so fast and so quick and to hold so many people that we're not looking at the aesthetic.
Or not, there's no time to appreciate it, or it's not taught to be appreciated.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things about... I grew up with my father is a brick and stone, or was a brick and stone mason. Mm-hmm. You get a little bit more being directly involved in the building and seeing the process and the slow speed by which a lot of that stuff is built. There's a little bit more appreciation in that. And I think that's just lost if you're always in fifth gear, just crushing through life.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, is it safe for me to live in? Do I have a place to live in? Cool, I don't care.
Well, and if you look at these buildings, they build them for years, right? Like, they'd take a decade to build something.
Yeah.
And I think it becomes a real art form. Like, every piece matters. Every way you look at it matters. You look at the Pantheon. The Pantheon is, it means the temple of all gods. Have you ever been to Rome?
No.
It's near the Piazza Navona, but if you walk over
Michael's been there.
You get a chance to look at it, it's not on the Piazza Navona, but it's near it. And it is this incredible building. It was originally built by Marcus Agrippa, who was the main general of Augustus, but it's rebuilt later on by Hadrian, and a dome is added and everything else. But the way they built it is they used different types of cement as they went up, because it got lighter and lighter and lighter as it went to the top, because the dome couldn't support itself. It was too heavy. So like the ability, it's one of the most beautiful buildings ever. It became a church.
What year was that dome built?
It's built in the early second century, I believe. The building itself was built in the first century BC, but it's rebuilt by Hadrian in the early second century.
It is amazing they were able to do that at that time.
And so there's actually another church. There's a church in Florence, if you can look this one up. It's called Il Duomo.
Did you see that in person, Michael, when you were there?
Maybe. Let me see.
It's kind of funny because it's like you don't realize it's there until you're standing in front of it, because it's just like off a corner. You're like, whoa, where's that building? So this building, Il Duomo, so you see that steeple on the top, the big dome? So when it was first built, it didn't have a dome, because they didn't know they had lost the technology on how to build the dome. So this is a Renaissance church. So the Medici family actually found a architect that had studied the Pantheon, and he's like, well, I think I can build this thing. And the Medici actually helped put the dome on that building, but it had no dome for years. It was just unfinished.
God, look at the layout of that city.
I believe it was the construction was, the top of it was started under Cosimo de' Medici, I believe.
Fascinating to me that they were able to build that level of complexity and sophistication.
And it's absolutely beautiful. And we've lost a lot of that. And I think, to me, aesthetics has a real spiritual quality to it. I think it really communicates to you at a much deeper level than just seeing a skyscraper.
Are you a religious guy?
Yeah.
Did that come from, I mean, obviously it seemed like you were going down a religious path. Obviously it's not an uncommon statement, but you see it going one of two ways, and hyper-religious families or over-religious families, they're either all in or all out. Mm-hmm. So for some people, it's like oil and vinegar. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic.
A lot of guilt.
So not necessarily, because
you're one of the few Catholics I've heard.
I was raised Baptist, and I went to Catholic school and decided I wanted to be Catholic.
How does that work? Do you just trade in like your license, or?
Yeah, there's a bunch of courses and stuff you got to take, and then.
Do you get like a Costco card?
You do not get a Costco card.
All right, I don't know. I'm not a religious guy. Like, it's like, yeah, I'm on the Dodgers, but I want to go play for the Giants. You got to switch out your jersey, you know?
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of doctrinal differences.
Yeah. Man. Well, what do you want to close it out with, man? We've been at it for almost 2.5 hours.
Oh my gosh, it's been that long?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of different things we could discuss, but I think the biggest thing to
what do we leave out? Other than we're totally fucked. We're going to go down the same path as Rome.
So I think here's the one thing to point out is the discussion I have a lot is, as I mentioned, Rome has 3 periods in time. 4 if you want to count the East. It's a republic in a kingdom in 753 BC. It becomes a republic in 509 BC, and then an empire in 31, and then it falls in 476 AD. But the Eastern Roman Empire goes until 1453 when it's conquered by the Ottomans. So you could really look at it as 4 eras in time. The argument people often want to make, and the one that I hate the most, is Donald Trump Julius Caesar? Well, number one, the guy's never led a military of any kind. But number two, if you look at where we are, I think we've actually ceased to be a functional republic in a long time. And this actually goes back to where we started. We talked about 1913 being a very pivotal year.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it, I think to me that was around the time period we ceased to be a functional republic. Because if you look at it, the executive branch has started to kind of overrule the others, right? Where there's not really 3 co-equal branches of government anymore. And at the same time, the actual will of the people doesn't seem to matter all that much, right? Like
I think most people would agree with you on that.
Just kind of does that. So to me, I think we've been more of an empire for a really long time. And I think you have to decide, do I want to save the empire, or do I want to try and bring back a republic, which I think at this point in time, we're so far beyond that, that I don't know if we can go back to that. So I think that's the real thing to be looking at is America ceased to be a functional republic. Sure, we are in name, but ceased to be a functional republic in a long time. And if you look at kind of the life cycle of, I know Plato talks about that, there's others that talk about it, but the life cycle of government, you can have a republic disintegrate to a democracy, and that disintegrates eventually to monarchy, right? So I think the problem is we've lost so much ability to do anything about where we're at. I think we really have to take a look at how things are built and take a look at figuring out how to get back to how things should be, right? And
what did the fall of Rome look like? Like, what did logistically?
Not what people want you to believe it did, right? Like, because, so here's what you have to understand. Emperor Justinian is the Eastern Roman emperor in the time period when Rome falls.
Yep.
And, well, not far after that, in the 6th century. And he has this idea he's going to reunite the Roman Empire. So he's going to do that by reconquering the West. And what had really happened is Rome is sacked in 410 by the Visigoths, and they pay tribute to the Visigoths. That means they're basically paying them money every year to just kind of like leave us alone. And after that period of time, the last few emperors you're going to have from 410 to 476 are basically people that aren't super qualified and a lot of child emperors. The last emperor of Rome is a guy named Romulus Augustulus. He's a teenager. And the barbarian king of Italy at that time, his name is Odoacer, retires him, gives him a pension, and says, hey, no more Roman emperors. And that's basically what happens is Rome just falls into a barbarian kingdom. It's not that Rome is conquered. It just gradually ceases to be less Roman, and it just becomes something else.
What did that look like day to day for people living in Rome? Just a slow shift over time?
It's a slow shift over time, and you're going to see that if you're in the right field, meaning that you produce products that are needed, you're probably going to hold a lot of your position, right? If you still had a lot of land, you're going to keep a lot of that land. But it starts to look more like feudalism if you're kind of looking at what it looks like. Early feudalism begins around 284. There's an emperor named Diocletian, and he basically changes how the Roman Empire functions. And he creates these divisions called dioceses, which the church is going to use later on. He also creates these two positions. He breaks down Rome into like military units because he didn't want commanders attacking each other anymore. And he has a person leading this unit called a dux, and it's where the word duke is going to come from. And then he's going to basically have these garrisons around that are controlled by guys named comites, which is where the word count comes from. So a lot of kind of early feudalism is going to start to build in this period. Now, it looks nothing like what we would see in kind of the Middle Ages and the High Middle Ages, but it is kind of the formation of the next time of things. So Rome more fades away than falls. When we hear about falling, a lot of that comes from scribes that are going to be writing in the Eastern Roman Empire, because Justinian doesn't want to look bad, right? Because he went in and invaded and tried to retake the thing, keeps it for a couple years, and it disintegrates back to kingdoms again. So that's really what the fall of Rome looks like. And obviously there's going to be historians out there that are going to tell me I'm wrong, because it's one of the biggest debated things out there, right? People are going to claim there's different years for when Rome fell. Some will say 476, others will say 1453, because the Byzantine Empire, well, they would have always called themselves Romans. So when Charlemagne is crowned the Holy Roman Emperor in 800, they would have been like, Holy Roman Emperor, I'm the Roman Emperor. Who's this guy? So it is something often left up for debate, but I think that's an easier way to understand it. It really doesn't fall. It kind of fades into what's going to become the early Middle Ages.
How would you apply that model to the U.S.? Say we're past Caesar, we're past the point of being an effective republic. In practice, what do you think that would look like here?
That's tough to say, right? Because I think if we could, there's some amendments we'd have to change, right? Like the Federal Reserve Act, the income tax, the 17th Amendment. But it kind of feels like we're starting to move towards, not that I like it or agree with it, we're moving towards a monarchy model. And I think that is something that concerns me. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of to be continued and see where that goes, because at the same time, if the United States ever broke up into smaller pieces, well, we would just be taken over by Canada and these other places, right? So
I mean, let's not use Canada as an example. I'm not so sure they have
Justin Trudeau is dating Katy Perry now, so
I saw that. Controversial. But it's funny how that's global news.
But I think it's something that people don't consider is how much of United America keeps, like maybe they're not our enemies, but they're nations from taking advantage of us, right? Yeah. If you look at kind of medieval Europe, of course, they're always nickel and diming each other to take advantage. Oh, well, this happened to Spain. Well, then England's going to go in, or this isn't going well for France. Then, so it is kind of interesting to see how those things play out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would not like to see our country descend into a monarchy-based environment.
Yeah.
I don't see the end of that looking so hot either.
So I think the thing is looking at, what are the things that take away our function as a republic, and how do we get those things back? I think
Where would you start?
I would start with first repealing the 17th Amendment, but then also figuring out how do we not have somebody name their cousin senator?
Yeah.
Because I think...
What is the 17th Amendment?
The 17th Amendment makes it so that state legislatures no longer select senators.
Gotcha.
And that would have actually really helped us during the pandemic, because the state legislatures didn't agree with a lot of governors and didn't agree with a lot of those. So they could have done something about that because they could have controlled the Senate. So I think that's a really big part as well, because if you remember, the reason that we had a House and a Senate, like an upper house and a lower house, was so that big states and small states would have equal voice. But what's really happened is now, since it's all pretty much a popular vote, we're run by cities. So I think that is something, if we get back to that, it starts to kind of equalize power a bit. I think that's actually a major movement to making the system function like it's supposed to.
Yeah, California's a good example of being run by the voting power of cities.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically San Diego, LA, San Francisco.
Yeah. And I think if you that's one part of it, but then also you have to handle the immigration problem of how are we getting congressmen, right? And you have to actually base on American population, because then that'll also affect things.
I didn't know that about the census. That was an interesting point that you brought up about, Yeah, they may not vote, but this determines how many seats we get.
Which is all you need.
Yeah. God, we're a fucking mess right now.
But it can be fixed too. It's not going to be easy. You got to cut the debt, and you have to handle the currency. And if we don't do those things, then we're not in very good shape.
What are your thoughts on Trump essentially running on two of those? The debt, immigration. I would say the immigration, we're making progress.
Yeah, I think we're making progress.
But the debt...
I'm not happy about that.
Has increased.
That's the thing that's taken away my political interest, honestly, I've always been somebody that has looked at, how the Federal Reserve operates and how our debt operates. And I fully understand that if we don't have control of our currency, we don't really run our country, right? So to me, I got really excited about the idea of cutting spending. Because if we cut spending, we can actually fix this. And that's been really, really discouraging to me, that it's kind of like, well, everybody forgot about it. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it was one of the main campaigning points is we were going to reduce the debt. And then...
It's gone up.
It has gone up. And I've heard these lengthy conversations about how it going up actually means that it went down from people who were directly involved. And I'll be honest with you, I can't follow the reasoning.
Yeah.
And it could be because my IQ deserves to sit more on a thermostat. You know what I mean? But I'm like, it went up. Our debt went up, but that's good because it's going to go down?
Well, because we could pay it off with cheaper dollars, remember? Just keep inflating it, and we'll just pay it off with funny money.
Oh, man. Let's get out of here before I have the desire to just end it all. Where can people find your services? Where can they find more about you, your podcast, all the good stuff?
Yeah. So they want to find me. I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate on all platforms. People with 3 names are often done something wrong, but me, somebody had the same name as me, so I'd use my middle name. If they're interested in Command Your Brand, we have a great brand authority analysis that will kind of show them where they stand and where their gaps are. If they head over to commandyourbrand.com, they can grab that over there.
Sweet. Right on, man. Well, thank you for making the travel out from the East Coast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
When do you take off?
Tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. Drive around a little bit more. Go into Glacier National Park if you have a chance.
Yeah, I want to do that tonight.
Okay. Killer. Well, let's get you the chance. You still got an hour and a half of sun.
Well, it stayed light till like after 7 last night.
In the summer, it stays light until about midnight.
Wow.
So, yeah, you're getting shortchanged. Awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah.